A loud shattering sound resounded. The ceramic bowl was smashed onto the ground by him and instantly broke into several pieces, whereas the soup in the bowl had spilled all over the ground. Say, senior brother. Murong Fei was filled with disbelief as she stared at Lemoyne blankly. Wasn't he just smiling just a moment ago? Didn't that mean that he was satisfied with the soup she made? Why then, did he not only not drink, and he even pushed it away? Murong Fei blinked her eyes as the rim of her eyes started to turn red. For a popular lady who was held to the skies, she would usually be surrounded by many suitors who couldn't wait to please her. If she were to cast them just one more glance, those talented youths would be ecstatic till they won't be able to sleep. However, such a popular lady like her only had eyes for Lemoyne. She was willing to remain meek and subservient, to dirty her hands in the kitchen for him, but yet he don't seem to register this into his mind. What Murong Fei was even more unable to accept was after Lemoyne had ditched her aside, he coldly said, "I'm now in closed-door cultivation. Who gave you the authority to come in and disturb me? In future, do not come in here again. I will break that person's legs who dares to allow you in." Saying that, Lemoyne didn't even bother to cast her a glance, and without a word, he started to meditate, and very quickly, he entered the state of an état. As Murong Fei looked at his indifferent back, a sliver of embitterment shot into her heart. Something was wrong, very wrong. Earlier, when she had come to look for Lemoyne from the distance, she saw Lemoyne holding onto a letter, and, as he was reading, he smiled brightly. At that moment, she had thought her eyes were failing her. Now that she recalled this scenario, Lemoyne was probably really smiling, and he was smiling at that letter. And Lemoyne's smile, when she had lifted the lid of the soup bowl, was probably due to remembering the contents of the letter and not because of the soup she made. It was her showering affection on an uninterested party. But who wrote that letter? Why did such an unfeeling person like Lemoyne smile so gently after reading the letter? Could it be that it was exactly like what Murong and I mentioned, that Lemoyne had found himself a fiancé in that small Southie kingdom, and he was extremely gentle and caring, pampering her in all ways? No, this was impossible. How would Lemoyne be easily ordered around and to accept the marriage arrangement? Even if there was such a fiancé, just based on Lemoyne's blunt character, how would he even smile just because of a letter from a woman? No matter how many times Murong Fei had pondered about this, it seemed impossible. But in her heart, she still could not let it go. She awkwardly left the Heaven Crate Valley, where Lemoyne was practicing his sword play, and she was unable to maintain that sweet, gentle smile on her face any further. That peerlessly beautiful face was filled with ice-cold, chilly intent. Murong Fei had immediately found her way to Murong Ni's room, who was quietly recuperating inside. Instead of showing care and concern for her sister's injuries, she directly got straight to the point and started shooting out questions. "And what you said previously, was it all the truth? Senior brother, he really has a fiancée?" Murong and I had rarely seen Murong Fei acting in a loss of self-control and impatient manner, and suddenly her heart shot a sliver of joy. To tell the truth, in front of her elder sister whose innate gift and beauty had long surpassed herself, Murong and I had never dared to display her interest in Lemoyne. However, deep down in her heart, she could also feel jealousy. Both of them were the sect master's daughters, but she couldn't beat Murong Fei in any segment. So, even the man she fancied had to be given up on a silver platter. You can also listen on. However, Murong and I knew that even if she were to fight with her sister, she would not be able to win her. Besides, this sister of hers was not as elegant as she looked. In the past, there were many female disciples who had a liking for Lemoyne as well, but subsequently, they had disappeared without a trace. Murong and I had long suspected that these matters had something to do with Murong Fei, but it's different now. No matter how much Murong Fei had wanted to keep Lemoyne for herself, and no matter how she oppressed the other female disciples in the sect, it didn't matter anymore, because Lemoyne already had someone who he likes. Thinking of this, Murong and I naturally did not restrain whatever she knew as her words flowed like water in an attempt to provoke her. Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? I had witnessed it with my own eyes during this trip to the Dark Moon Forest with fifth brother. Senior brother had brought along a young lady and personally introduced her as his fiancée. What? So it's true? Murong Fei clenched her teeth as the silk handkerchief in her hand was squashed into a ball. Murong and I continued. Of course what I'm saying is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask fifth brother. He had seen it with his own eyes too, and second brother, who came later to the Dark Moon Forest, had also seen it. So, there's really such a person. Murong Fei was so jealous that she was unable to maintain her composure. Murong and I felt much better after she saw Murong Fei's reaction. Huang Yueli was not an easy character to deal with, and Murong and I, she was definitely unable to outwit her. But surely her elder sister was different? As the highly valued eldest daughter of the sect master, with an 8th grade talent, she had plenty of schemes. Now that Murong Fei already knew about the existence of Huang Yueli, she wondered if the two of them were to encounter each other, who would have the upper hand. The best scenario would be neither side gain an upper hand. Perhaps she might have a chance to take the advantage. Murong and I continued to add oil to fire as she intentionally added, "Speaking of this, elder sister, yesterday when I was telling you this, didn't you tell me it's impossible and senior brother would definitely not get engaged to that country bumpkin? Why did you come here to ask again? I heard that you had intentionally boiled a bowl of medicinal cuisine for senior brother. How was it after drinking the soup? Was it effective?" Murong and I purposely poked the point where it hurt the most, and this was extremely effective. When Murong Fei recalled the cold manner that Li Moying had treated her, her heart started to fill with anger. She had thought his nature was just indifferent, so she didn't think much of it. But earlier he had let out such a gentle smile, just from reading a letter or when he was dreaming by himself. He actually laughed out. What did it represent? Murong Fei had also seen couples who were passionately in love and was very sure that it was a display of deep affection. The fury in her heart could not be suppressed further as a flower vase in a corner was smashed to smithereens with a flick of her sleeve. The flower vase dropped heavily with a ping and broken into pieces as the fresh flowers fell all over on the ground. Not only was Murong and I not anxious upon seeing her fly into a rage, her heart flew with joy. For Murong Fei to show such anger, this was something rarely seen. But every single time she flew into a rage, someone was bound to get into big trouble. It looked like Huang Yueli's good days were coming to an end. Murong and I pretended to advise further. "Elder sister, what's wrong? Why did you get so worked up? That flower vase was a birthday gift from sixth sister several years ago. You can also listen on." Murong Fei immediately stopped her from continuing. "Stop these rubbish. Since I broke your flower vase, I will naturally find something to make an exact one for you. Tell me clearly, that so-called fiancé that senior brother claimed, what's her background? What have you discovered in the Dark Moon Forest?" Whenever Murong Fei mentioned the word fiancé, her intonation would suddenly become malevolent, and every single syllable seemed to come out through the slits in between her teeth, filled with icy savage. And she was worried that Murong and I would not tell the entire truth, so she added, "You better say it properly. If you do, not only will I give you that 6th-tier spiritual baby pet that you always wanted, I will also help you to seal the pact with it." Even if she hadn't added this promise, Murong and I would still tell her, but since now that she had offered a huge temptation, she became even more energetic. She was sniggering in her heart, thinking that the sandpiper and clam war together, and, as she was the fisherman, she stood to gain all the advantages. It would be better if they could fight to their deaths and make Li Moying disgusted. "Elder sister, this fiancée of senior brother's is some marquis's daughter in the South Yu Kingdom. She seems very young, and from my estimation, she probably has not reached the marriageable age yet. Moreover, her cultivation is not high. Seems only to be at the Qi Profound Realm 9 level. It seems that it was senior brother's paternal father who set the marriage arrangement for him. Morong Fei sneered coldly. I see. In this case, she's really a country bumpkin. Kiki, for disciples from large sects like us. Our marriages are not decided by our biological parents, but only by the sect. Senior brother's marriage cannot be valid at all. What's more, a first-degree realm country bumpkin. How can she possibly be a good match for senior brother? This is simply a joke. Morong and I hurriedly added. That's right. That was what I had originally thought of as well, and I went to warn her that my elder sister, you, are senior brother's future wife. As for such a character like her, she's not even fit to warm up senior brother's bed. Morong Fei silently nodded. Exactly. But elder sister, do you know what she said? She said that she's senior brother's officially engaged fiancée. Moreover, senior brother likes her, so you're just imagining that your love is reciprocated. What? This slut, both her status and cultivation are so lowly, and she dares to say this of me? Morong Fei was not someone who was easily instigated, but the person she minded most was Li Moying. It was unfortunate that just 1 hour ago, she had been rejected by Li Moying, and just as she was most embarrassed and hurt, she had to hear of such a news. And what Morong and I had said was essentially the truth. Even though the last sentence was to sow discord, but these words were exactly what Huang Yueli had used to insult Morong Fei. Even if Morong Fei was there in person, Huang Yueli would have said the same things in front of her, just because it was all the truth, so it sounded like it had happened in that way. Morong and I carried on, picking out parts of her stories on the happenings in the Dark Moon Forest. She naturally hid the contents on where she had rivaled for affection of Li Moying and mentioned only about how cocky this fiancé was or how she would use Li Moying as a support to bully her and even influence Li Moying's shadow guards and Luo Jiyun to revolve around her. Besides that, she also emphasized that Li Moying's illness and him being attacked by the magical beast, so seriously hurt to the point of almost losing his life, was all due to Huang Yueli. You can also listen on. As Morong Fei continued listening, her heart grew with resentment and bewilderedness. What happened to senior brother? How could he allow such a shameless slut to stay beside his side and create havoc? Could it be that she was had a hold on senior brother, which allowed her to continue staying by his side? Morong and I quickly added more oil to the raging fire when she saw Morong Fei displaying such anger. Elder sister, from my observation, senior brother seemed to really be infatuated by this little lass. What? How can this be possible? Such an outstanding talent like senior brother has very high standards. So what would be C in this country bumpkin? You are still young. Don't be fooled by that shameless slut. She told you that senior brother is infatuated by her, and you actually believe her? Morong Fei didn't believe this, because in the eyes of other daughters from the other sex and herself, held Li Moying in a godly status. If any one of them was able to catch a glance from him, it would have been an extraordinary achievement. This kind of man would definitely stand on the pinnacle of the entire soaring heavens continent. If he didn't even choose Morong Fei, who had an outstanding talent and elegant demeanor among the other ladies, what more a country bumpkin? There was no way she would ever believe these words. Morong and I hastily added, Sigh, elder sister, I didn't want to believe this initially too. But you didn't see the attitude that senior brother gave her. I can only say he listens to her every word. I couldn't stand seeing her unbridled manner and merely lashed out a few words, and senior brother almost threw me out of the team. Moreover, fifth brother had already started greeting that lass as sister-in-law, and senior brother didn't rebut him at all. Elder sister, surely you understand what that means, right? What? Junior brother Luo, he actually greeted her that? How can it be not true? For a continuous 10 over days, he went going sister-in-law nonstop, and not only did senior brother not correct her, he smiled brightly every single time. Oh yes, elder sister. Normally you'd seldom see senior brother smile, right? But in front of that lass, not only did senior brother keep smiling, he also shamelessly followed her around everywhere. When Morong Fei heard such a descriptive narration, the look on her face changed entirely. Earlier, it was just a look of fury, but now it had congealed into seriousness. If it was said that before this, Li Moying was rumored to have several fiancés, she would only feel anger, thinking that the idol in her heart had been dirted by those shameless women. But now, when Murong Fei heard these, she felt a sense of crisis. The term sister-in-law was not something that could be used casually. With Li Moying's character, if the other party had not obtained his consent and had linked any other women to his name, he would have flown into a rage long ago. Moreover, Luo Jian was a valued talent in the sect. He was an 8th grade talent, and although he was much easygoing as compared to Li Moying, but this kind of talent would also have his own pride. For him to use the term sister-in-law, it could only be incited by Li Moying. In this case, had Li Moying really taken a fancy to this country bumpkin who had popped out of nowhere? But how could this be possible? After so many years, could she have missed out that Li Moying's interest had actually been so different? To have a liking for a country bumpkin? No matter how Murong Fei thought about it, she was unable to sort things out. But she was very sure about one thing. That was, since Li Moying had truly fallen for that lass, then it would get in her way of being together with Li Moying, a huge obstacle. So she absolutely must get rid of this lass. You can also listen on. A vicious glint flashed past in Murong Fei's eyes. She turned to face Murong and I and asked, "So there's such a thing? Then do you know what that little ass's name is?" Murong and I recalled, "I think she's Yuli." I heard senior brother kept addressing her as Lear, such an affectionate and ambiguous term. It was obvious that only a couple who were passionately in love would use such a name. Murong Fei was totally unable to link such an addressing term to that cold and aloof senior brother of hers. How would that term ever come out from Li Moying, that cold-like-ice person's mouth? She could not even imagine what kind of situation that would have been. Jealousy rose to its highest point as it filled up Murong Fei's heart. She could no longer bear to stay in Murong Ni's room, as she found an excuse and left in a hurry. Murong Fei returned to her own courtyard and started pacing around in the garden. After pacing up and down for several rounds, her heart was still unable to quieten down. She ordered her personal maid over. "Go, invite senior brother Zhuo Fangping now." Very soon, a man dressed in navy blue robe walked in. He saw Murong Fei's silhouette and immediately strode over. "Junior sister Murong, why are you looking for me?" Murong Fei looked at him and let out a smile. "Senior brother Zhuo, recently I heard that you had successfully mastered the profound 7 arsenoporite strike, which is one of the most difficult profound skills in our sect. Congratulations." Zhuo Fangping was stunned momentarily. Normally, Murong Fei was a very proud woman, and besides carefully trying to please Li Moying towards the rest of them admirers, she always held an aloof attitude. Now that his goddess was smiling at him, Zhuo Fangping suddenly got excited. Could it be that because he had mastered this upper-level profound skill and had displayed his innate skill and power, so it made Murong Fei see him in a different light now? "Thanks to junior sister for your compliments. I've been working hard and my luck was slightly better." Zhuo Fangping replied modestly, but there was still a slight tinge of complacent on his expression. The corners of Murong Fei's lips were all smiles, but the expression in her eyes was still frosty. Zhuo Fangping was a direct disciple of an elder in the sect, and his innate gift and power was not comparable to Murong Fei. So at his current age of 24 years old, he had just entered the 5th degree realm's cultivation stage. However, he was one of the most ardent pursuers of Murong Fei. Although Murong Fei scorned him quite a bit, but normally she would not be so stingy and would occasionally give him a few smiles to get him hooked so that he could help her to do the dirty work. As for now, the reason why she asked for Zhuo Fangping was naturally because she had a motive. Murong Fei conversed slightly with him before changing the topic. "Senior brother Zhuo, there's a matter which is very important to me. But the battle with West Sky region is about to start any time, and I'm not allowed to leave the sect now." Murong Fei just started off slightly, and Zhuo Fangping immediately agreed. "Junior sister, don't worry. You don't need to leave the sect. If there's any matter, I'll handle it on your behalf, and I guarantee that you'll be duly satisfied." Murong Fei's lips curled upwards satisfactorily. As expected, Men were just like dogs. Once they see a beauty, in order to steal their hearts, the beauty would only need to occasionally let out a smile and a couple of praises, and they would do anything for her. Only Lemoyne stood high up alone. Unlike the others, he did not win her favor, but yet, he occupied her mind every single day. She was determined to win his heart. You can also listen on. Thinking about this, Morong Fei's fingers winced tightly on the silk handkerchief. She tried hard to compose her tone to sound natural. That's great. With senior brother's help, I can rest assured. But this matter requires you to make a trip to South Yu Kingdom, and the distance is rather far. Zhuo Fangping didn't hesitate and immediately responded, No matter. Junior sister, just tell me what's on your mind. Morong Fei replied, Help me make a trip to South Yu Kingdom and find a young lady called Yu Li. She should be a young miss of a rich family in the South Yu Kingdom, around 14 years of age, and her cultivation is just SOSO at first-degree realm. She is also the fiancée of the second prince of South Yu Kingdom. Zhuo Fangping nodded his head without a doubt. Very few people knew the fact that Lemoyne was from the South Yu Kingdom, and most people thought he was an orphan that the sect master had picked up. Only a few prominent characters and people closer to him, such as Luo Jiun, knew his background. So Zhuo Fangping didn't know that fact at all. He only heard Morong Fei continuing, Once you find this little lass, find a chance to kill her. Zhuo Fangping was stumped. This, junior sister, why? Morong Fei's expression was calm as she replied coldly, Senior brother, and naturally, I would have my own reasons, so you're not willing to help me? If you're not willing, I can find other senior brothers to help instead. Zhuo Fangping was originally hesitant, but when he heard these words, he immediately flustered. If you don't, junior sister, don't find anyone else. This matter is very simple. Isn't she just a first-degree realm lass? Senior brother, I will settle this matter quickly and cleanly. There were many male disciples who wanted to win Morong Fei's favor. After all, who didn't hope to become the son-in-law of the sect master? Putting aside her status, just based on Morong Fei's beauty and innate talent, it was enough to make those talents pour their hearts out for her. Zhuo Fangping was very sure that if he didn't take up this task, there would be someone else who would be willing to help Morong Fei. By then, they would be able to show their faces in front of Morong Fei and win her favor. Zhuo Fangping didn't want to give up such a good opportunity to others. What's more, wasn't it just killing a person / as a practitioner, whose hands were not stained? The reason for killing wasn't that important at all, and he was just asking because he was curious about Morong Fei. Even if there was no answer, it wasn't important at all. Morong Fei gave out a slight smile and replied, Since that's the case, I'll give me advance thanks to senior brother first. Zhuo Fangping stared at the faint smile as he blankly nodded his head. South Yu Kingdom. Valiant Martial Manor. Huang Yueli had been peacefully cultivating for the past few days, and basically she had already refined a large portion of the fire-attributed energy within her body, and the remaining required quite a bit of time before she could completely refine all the energy. So besides cultivating daily, she would also dabble in other work, such as refining profound weapons, or taking some time out to give pointers regarding cultivation to the people in her manor. Huang Yueli realized that ever since Mo had arrived, all the people in the manor's cultivation had suddenly made tremendous improvements. For this, Huang Yueli specially observed quite a bit. The result was she discovered that under Mo Yi's hand, he used the Spartan training method. So whoever who were not able to complete the training mission had to face severe punishment. In this way, no one dared to laze around, and were all training diligently, without a single bit of slack. You can also listen on. Not only that, Mo had also picked amongst them few servants with high innate talent and perseverance to become the leader of the guards. Huang Yu was extremely satisfied with this. No wonder he was the right-hand man of Lemoyne. No matter what he did, it was enough to make anyone relieved, as his arrangement was very well covered. In actual fact, Huang Yueli had thought of teaching those servants in the manor herself, but unfortunately, she had been busy cultivating and refining armaments, so she simply had no time. Mo had done her a huge favor this time. During this day, Huang Yueli had just completed her cultivation and barely stepped out of her room when she saw Kai Wei running into her courtyard in a flurry. Third miss, something bad has happened. What's the matter? Kai Wei huffed and puffed. The palace. There are many people from the palace, a lot of golden scale guards, saying that they're going to capture you and Sir Mo into the palace. They said Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor pointed you two out, saying the robbery of the royal treasury had something to do with the both of you, and they want to punish you for the crime. When Huang Yueli heard this, not only did she not appear flustered, she smiled and said, "Looks like Ma Jian and the rest are severely injured this time, so they could only get down their beds and fabricate accusations. Isn't that simply miserable?" She had expected this to happen sooner or later, the day she had made the royal treasury collapse. It was because of the self-destruction mechanism which buried the entire treasury beneath the ground. It was equivalent to losing the entire South Yu Kingdom's capital. For such a huge commotion to happen, how would the emperor not raise the alarm? Although it was peaceful in the valiant martial manner during this entire time, the atmosphere outside had already been turned topsy-turvy. Golden scale guards were capturing people all over the kingdom in order to find the mastermind who had wrecked the royal treasury. But this was what she wanted. Only then could her next step of her plan materialize. Huang Yueli's smile grew deeper. Kai Wei stamped her feet as she screeched. "Third miss, how could you still smile at this time? What should we do now?" Huang Yueli calmly replied, "Do nothing at all. Just make sure the main gate is shut tight closely and all off you continue to cultivate in the manor. I shall make a trip with Moe to the palace." "Huh, but..." "Third miss, the palace is filled with golden scale guards, and the Imperial Tutor is also present. If you and Sir Moe were to enter, if Crown Prince were to resort to underhanded methods to harm you, what should you do?" "Harm me? He needs to have that potential to do so first." Huang Yueli didn't even think anything of it. The palace's Imperial Tutor and Emperor's uncle's cultivation were only at the 4th degree realm. Not to mention that Imperial Tutor had been injured by Moe several days ago. Judging from that, his injuries should not have recovered fully yet. Even if they were to combine their efforts together, they were still unable to defeat Moe. If they were to really enter the palace, the one who fall into bad luck would definitely not be Huang Yueli. Under the worrying eyes of Kai Wei, Huang Yueli along with Moe left the manor leisurely. Outside the manor entrance stood a team of golden scale guards waiting. Different from the usual bossy and domineering attitude, these golden scale guards had heard what happened in the valiant martial manor on that day, and no one dared to act rashly on Huang Yueli's turf. All of them stood upright, not daring to enter directly. When they saw Huang Yueli coming out, they even bowed politely. The lead commander got off his stead and went forward to politely ask, "Third miss by, the emperor had a verbal edict to invite you and Master Moe into the palace immediately. I would like to trouble you to follow me to enter the palace." Huang Yueli raised her brow as she replied, "Then lead the way. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli had not expected the golden scale guards to be so courteous along the way, so she couldn't get angry with them. She wasn't an unreasonable person, so when others treated her with respect, she naturally won't make things difficult for them. Once they've entered the palace, she was brought quickly to the main hall. From afar, she had already heard the empress's wailing and howling. "Your Majesty, oh your Majesty, please seek justice for Ma Jian." "Ma Jian? He's simply too pitiful." The empress cried pitifully. "My child, the Crown Prince, had his meridians severed by Li Moying that brat. He had been bedridden for such a long time, and it was only after Shuer finally reached home before he had recovered, but we had never expected that he would be harmed by Ruoli, that source of calamity." Following, that was the emperor's voice. "Enough. We still don't know what is the truth yet. What's more, since Ma Jian had just recovered, why didn't he stay at home to recuperate? Instead, why did he create trouble for Ruoli? Just what was he trying to do?" "Your Majesty, Ruoli definitely have something to do with Shuer incident too." In the midst of the sobbing and shouting, Huang Yueli had already strode into the main hall. Upon hearing the empress's words, she smiled slightly and cut into her words. Your Majesty, why am I not able to understand what you're saying? What happened to the seventh princess? Why did you say it has something to do with me? Empress's crying came to an end spontaneously, and as her eyes were locked dead on Huang Yueli as she spun around. Gnashing her teeth, she hissed, "By Ruoli, you still dare to come here?" Huang Yueli innocently blinked her big eyes as she replied, "Your Majesty, His Majesty summoned for me. How can I not come? And why don't I dare to come? Earlier when I was at the door, I could hear your Majesty claiming that I had harmed the seventh princess. Where did that come from? You're still pretending." Huang Yueli's calm and composed attitude thoroughly infuriated the Empress. Empress had never thought that this lass had the nerve to deal such a heavy blow to the country's crown prince and the princess, and after everything had been brought to light and she had been captured to be condemned, she was showing an unafraid look, and she still had the cheek to smile. Empress was raging with fury as she swore in her heart that she would thoroughly torture this lass in order to seek revenge for her two children. Empress retorted, "You dare to say Schwenner's matter had nothing to do with you? I have already checked things out clearly. That day, Schwer went to your valiant martial manor, hoping to reminisce about the past. But in the end, the minute she came back, she turned into that manor. My Schwer had treated you as her best friend and looked for you the minute she returned. But how about you? How did you treat her?" Huang Yueli's look turned chilly. This Empress was indeed as shameless as always, distorting the truth deliberately. Li Schwer had looked for her because she treated her like her best friend? There's actually such a close female friend who'd deliberately interrupt other people's advancement? Her big eyes grew wide with exaggeration, and a confused expression filled her face. What did she end up as? I really don't know anything. That's right. That day, Seventh Princess had indeed visited my manor, but as I was in closed-door cultivation, I didn't have any time to receive her arrival. Seventh Princess probably treated me as her family, so she didn't stand on any ceremony. Not only did she stay at my manor for an entire day, she also taught my servants a lesson and injured my personal maid. Besides that, she also felt that my room needs to be renovated and helped me demolish it. Such a considerate way of thinking of my well-being. As her words came out of her mouth, Empress Dowager's voice came echoing from the side. You can also listen on. What's happening? What Lear meant was, not only was Schwerer beating up people in the valiant martial manner, she was also throwing things around. Outrageous. As a princess, what happened to her upbringing? Huang Yueli spun around and noticed that sitting right in the main hall were the Empress, the Emperor and Empress Dowager, who were pulled along to preside over justice, as well as the legendary royal uncle, whose cultivation was in the fourth-degree realm. Besides that, Imperial Tutor was seated right in front of the Emperor. Although he looked normal, but under Huang Yueli's vicious glare, she could tell that his complexion was still swollen. Obviously, the internal injuries within his body had yet to fully recover. And right in front of the Imperial Tutor was a stretcher where Crown Prince Li Majuan laid. He was unable to sit up, but he used his pair of bloodshot eyes to stare viciously at Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli heard the Empress Dowager speaking out for her, so she turned around and gave her a curtsy. This old lady Empress Dowager, although she was soft-hearted, but in totality, she was considered as a good person. However, when the Empress heard what she said, her rage rose rapidly. Schwerer is the princess of the Empress, and since the servants in your manor did not treat her well, she helped you by lecturing them. What was wrong with that? Moreover, it is your honor to have the princess visiting your manor. You only care about your own cultivation and left her aside. In your eyes, do you even have any respect for the royal family's prestige? The corners of Huang Yueli's lips moved coldly as she secretly laughed in her heart. This Empress was already a grown woman, but she's still so naive to think that just based on the royal family's prestige, it was enough to make one bow and bend their knees? Wasn't she thinking way too much? In soaring heaven's continent, the only way to earn other people's respect was to use their own power. Huang Yueli blinked as she replied, Your Majesty, what you said is correct. Although Seventh Princess attacked the array that I had set up for my closed-door cultivation, almost causing my advancement to fail, but I didn't haggle with her on this. After my advancement was successful, I had even sent her away courteously. At least, when she left the valiant martial manor, she was still in one piece. But after she had left, I wouldn't know what happened during my absence. The Empress retaliated. In one piece? What in one piece? What on earth did you do to Schwer? That she would appear in that manner at the palace gates. That manner? What manner? Huang Yueli asked innocently. With that bunch of guards, not wearing. Empress was so infuriated that the words blurted out from her mouth. Shut your mouth. Empress, what nonsense are you sprouting? Emperor gave a hard cough to stop her from talking. Empress suddenly realized that she had almost narrated that day's situation. Li Xuan's affair was the biggest scandal in the royal family in these past few years, and if it were to leak out, she would be finished. So the Emperor and Empress had been hiding this matter from everyone, and even those golden scale guards whom had witnessed that day's situation had all been secretly put to death. Even the Crown Prince did not know that his own sister had such a scandal. Empress quickly used her hand to cover her mouth, not daring to say a single word more. However, Huang Yueli unforgivingly continued her questioning. Your Majesty, what happened to Seventh Princess? Please tell me. I cannot be maligned by anyone for nothing. Since you said I had harmed the Seventh Princess, then tell me what happened to her. Otherwise, won't I be made a scapegoat for nothing? Empress really wanted to point her finger at her nose and give her a good scolding, but yet she was unable to do so, just because Huang Yueli was right when she said the Empress did not say what had happened to the Seventh Princess, yet claimed that she had harmed her. Wasn't this purely saying something without thinking? You can also listen on. Empress was left dumbfounded and unable to reply. At last she responded. When Schwer returned from the valiant martial manor, she was found to have both her arms broken and her face was burnt. As for her bodyguards, they had been beaten up and several of them had sustained severe injuries. You dare to say that this has nothing to do with you? Huang Yueli maintained her lost look. I really don't know. At that time, I was behind closed door cultivating for my advancement, and Seventh Princess insisted on barging into the room. The result was that she hit against the profound energy that I had lost control over during my advancement. At that moment, she had indeed been pushed far away by the profound energy that was let loose, and she felt quite heavily too. But how can you blame this on me? Besides, after my advancement, Seventh Princess immediately went back, and I didn't even know she had broken her arms from a fall. When Empress Dowager heard these words, her expression turned darker. She had not known about the scandal between Seventh Princess and the Golden Scale Guards, and had thought Li Schwer was beaten up in the valiant martial manor and mobilized her troops for a punitive expedition. Upon hearing the entire matter, she took Huang Yueli's side immediately. If what Lier said was true, then it would be Schwenner's fault. To interrupt one when one was in the middle of advancement might lead to death. Schwer didn't manage to harm anyone, but her luck was bad enough to have met with the impact of the profound energy and cause her own injury. Instead of feeling remorse, you still have the guts to come and complain to me? When the Empress heard what the Empress Dowager said, she secretly gritted her teeth. The words that Empress Dowager had said was obviously blaming her for her lack of discipline. How could Empress Dowager be so biased? It was this wretch who had continuously humiliated her crown prince and Seventh Princess, and also beaten them to such a devastating manner. It was all that wretch's fault. Suddenly, her eyes glimmered as she subconsciously found a flaw to Huang Yueli's answer. Your Highness, don't be cheated by Bairuoli. How can you believe when she said she was in advancement? Who does know that at the Peach Blossom Banquet 1 month ago, Bairuoli had just advanced to the Chi Profound Realm 9 stage? How much time had passed since then? And she's about to advance? Yet she still dare to claim that she had advanced successfully? Isn't that a blatant lie? Empress stared at Huang Yueli, hoping to see her shocked and helpless expression after she had been exposed. Unfortunately, Huang Yueli still maintained a composed expression except for a glint of ridicule flashing past her eyes. Your Majesty, Do you think I'm lying? Isn't it obvious? You're just 14 years old and had already advanced to the second-degree realm. Even if you're a sixth-grade talent, your cultivation speed can't be that heaven-defying. Do you really think everyone lacked the power of judgment? You actually dare to just say out without considering the consequences. A frog in the well, this is also considered as heaven-defying. Huang Yueli snickered icily. In the huge sex, there were plenty of 14-year-old in the second-degree realm. What's more, they don't even require sixth-grade talent. From a person in a small country at the border, it was no wonder that their knowledge was so short-sighted. And no wonder there were few outstanding experts within the country. Empress had believed that she was lying and kept pressing on. Stop your blatant lies. Since you're so awesome and you claim that you're not lying, then simple enough. Release your profound energy and let everyone take a look. If you don't dare to woo. Before Empress could finish her words, she felt a powerful, profound energy rushing towards her. Her chest became tight and her expression turned pale white immediately. Unable to say a single word, she used her hand and pressed against her chest, unbelieving, looking straight in front of her. Huang Yueli had slightly unleashed the profound energy within her, but as she didn't want to expose her true power, she had only unleashed a power equivalent to the second-degree realm first-stage practitioner's profound energy. You can also listen on. Empress's cultivation was not high, only its second-degree realm first level. Under the attack of Huang Yueli's profound energy, she actually felt ill at ease as the qi and blood in her chest surged, and she almost threw up blood. Unbelievably, she glanced at Huang Yueli. You really? The other people present, too, displayed a shocked expression. Emperor asked, astonishing. This is really second-degree realm practitioner's qi. How is this possible? Lear, you've really broken through to the second-degree realm? Huang Yueli nodded. That's right. The day when 7th Princess came over, I had just successfully broken through. Initially, I was thinking that since your majesties are both my seniors, I should enter the palace to inform you of this happy occasion. But because 7th Princess had almost interrupted my advancement, the profound energy within was unstable, so during this entire duration, I had been cultivating in secrecy. Emperor and Empress Dowager crossed eyes and gave out a joyous expression. 14 years old, and you've already broke through to the second-degree realm. Even among sixth-grade talents practitioners, this is very hard to find. Lear is indeed by Lu Feng's daughter. Your talent is extraordinary. Empress Dowager added, Lear is really something. Your future is laid with boundless prospects, and you definitely chase up to your father. Hearing the Emperor and Empress Dowager's praises, Empress's face had turned steely green. Li Shuer had been stripped of the princess title and had been impounded in the isolated palace. Even the Empress was not given a chance to see her. So what they knew was after Li Shuer had went to find trouble with Huang Yueli, she had ended up in that state. But they did not know the actual events that had happened. She had never thought that Huang Yueli had coincidentally just broke through to the second-degree realm on that day. The few of them felt something bad was going to happen. Huang Yueli's innate talent had originally surpassed Li Majuan, and she had even taken a step forwards and broke through to the second-degree realm. In this way, she had already left the crown prince behind. As for Li Shuer and the others, they were far more inferior. As her power grew larger, it would become more difficult to deal with her. Originally, their intent was to use this opportunity to force Huang Yueli into a dead end. Even if they were not able to give her a death sentence, at least they should be able to lock her in the prison and secretly deal with her. But who would have expected that there was such a plot twist? Such a talented young lady was a huge asset to the entire South Yu Kingdom. She was also the future hope for invigorating the country, so Emperor would definitely not bear to sentence her heavily. As expected, after Emperor and Empress Dowager had showered her with praises, the look they gave towards Huang Yueli had turned even more amiable. Lear, I have now understood the situation that you had explained. Shuer was indeed too much. The consequences of interrupting one's advancement is very serious. It is normal that you are upset with her, and as for her getting injured from the reserve impact of your profound energy, she can only blame herself for her own rashness. Empress could tell that the Emperor had no intention of pursuing the matter and hurriedly added, "Your Majesty, we have yet to investigate the true facts of this matter yet. Even if Schwerer was at fault in the first place, I am not blaming Byrooli for hurting her. But she cannot do such things to Schwerer. Isn't that throwing our royal family's face on the ground to stomp? Lear, don't blame me for being calculative, but this matter, you absolutely must give me an explanation." Emperor immediately became hesitant. Huang Yueli maintained her innocent look. "Your Majesties, you had mentioned this several times that I had harmed Li Schwerer. I really don't know what's going on. Can't you make it any clearer? You can also listen on." With this, Empress was once again held back. That's right. Why did she forget again? If that shameless thing that happened to Li Schwerer were to spread out, the consequences would be dire. In future, who would dare to marry Li Schwerer? Empress had been hoping that Li Schwerer would be able to join the big family in Sky Cloud City, find a good husband, and help the Crown Prince add some points to his status. However, she was not willing to let Huang Yueli off so easily. Just as she was hesitating, Huang Yueli spoke out. "Your Majesty, is there something that you cannot speak off? Or it is something difficult to say out? Otherwise, shall we do it this way? Since you insist that I had harmed 7th Princess, why not ask her out and have a confrontation directly? Otherwise, get her bodyguards. I have a straight foot and is not afraid of crooked shoe." The Empress hesitated again. Confrontation? How could she confront? Ever since Li Schwerer got into that matter, she had always been locked up in the isolation palace, and her emotions were obviously not stable. If they were to get her to the main hall, it was possible that the minute she opened her mouth, she would narrate everything out right away. In this way, how was she going to maintain her reputation? As for those bodyguards, in order to hide the secret that Li Schwerer had lost his chastity, the Emperor and Empress had already ordered those men to death on that fateful day. Now were they going to look for witness? Empress looked at Huang Yueli's expression that resembled a smile, and yet not a smile, and knew that she must be ridiculing her from the depths of her heart, and that angered her even further. After half a day, she could only force this sentence out. Schwerer. Ever since the day that Schwerer returned injured, she had been recuperating quietly. How can we let her come out and be agitated by you? As for those bodyguards, all of them have their duties, so how could we just ask them out from their official work just like that? Huang Yueli couldn't help but let out a sniggering sound. "Your Majesty, isn't what you said just too funny? 7th Princess reported against me, but don't dare to come out to confront me. As for those bodyguards, they also don't dare to come out and face me. Just based on this, you still dare to claim that you're not slandering me? Otherwise, could it be that Li Schwerer had done something shameless and don't dare to show her face? What's something shameless? Don't you dare to sprout words blindly?" Empress's face turned pale white as she denied vehemently. Huang Yueli retorted, "Since it's nothing shameless, then why are you hemming and hawing? Since Empress Dowager is also here, why not just invite 7th Princess here and let Empress Dowager to preside over justice for us?" Empress Dowager frowned as she had long tired of their endless bickering. At this moment, she immediately continued, "What Lear said is correct. Empress, since you maintain what you had said, why not just ask the person involved to come out and tell the truth? I have heard that Schwener's skin was burnt. As a practitioner, she should have recovered after so many days of rest, so go and ask her to come to the main hall." Saying that, she turned her head and commanded, "Men, go and invite 7th. No." Empress hastily stood up and stopped the eunuch who was preparing to send the order. Empress Dowager felt something was amiss, and the expression on her face sunk. "Empress, what's the meaning of this? Could it be that it was exactly as Lear had said? You're just slandering her?" "That's not true, Your Highness. I... Empress did not know how to respond as she had scolded Huang Yueli 100,000 times in her heart. This wretched lass. She was entirely filled with evil intentions. She knew that was not able to openly talk about Li Schwerer's matter in public, and had purposely dragged the Empress Dowager to partake in this. This time, how was she going to get out of this situation? You can also listen on. The Empress felt that she was treated unjustly. This matter was obviously caused by Huang Yueli. Li Shuer had said herself that it was Huang Yueli who had fed her with the abstinence pill, thus causing her to create such a scandal. However, there was nothing the Empress could do about it, as Li Shuer could not come out to testify against her. Not only was she not able to convict Huang Yueli of the crime, now it seemed that in the Empress Dowager's eyes, she had intentionally set Huang Yueli up in order to frame her. But whatever she had said was the entire truth. Just as Empress was incomparably oppressed, Emperor's voice rang across the hall. "Forget it, Empress. This matter has now come to an end." After he said that to the Empress, he turned towards the Empress Dowager. "Queen Mother, Empress only had one daughter, Shuer, and now that she's injured, it is only natural that Empress is anxious about her. And it is true that Shuer had indeed got injured at the Valiant Martial Manor, so it's not considered as slander. However, as Lear did not do it on purpose, this matter, let's just let it pass. Lear, what do you think?" Emperor had been listening and thinking for quite some time. In actual fact, he did have his suspicions on Huang Yueli as well. Li Shuer was trapped so badly, and as she had just stepped out of the Valiant Martial Manor, Huang Yueli was naturally the main suspect. The only thing Emperor could not figure out was even if Huang Yueli had just advanced, she was only at the second-degree realm first stage. Li Shuer's cultivation was much higher than hers, not to mention that she had brought along so many outstanding golden-scaled guards along. Besides that, Huang Yueli had no reason to trick Li Shuer. In this case, there was a possibility that Lear was being framed, perhaps. Li Shuer had offended someone in Sky Cloud City, and that party had sent someone here to exact revenge? Under the circumstances that there wasn't sufficient evidence to pin the crime onto Huang Yueli. If Li Moying were to return in future, he would definitely fly into a rage. Even without Li Moying, just based on Huang Yueli's innate gift alone, Emperor had not wanted to offend her too much. More importantly, Li Shuer and the men had paraded themselves ostentatiously about in town, so this matter absolutely cannot be publicized. If word really got out, then the person who would lose out is Li Shuer, and the ones to make a spectacle of themselves would be the entire royal family. Weighing the pros and cons, Emperor chose to keep the peace. Empress unbelievably raised her head. "Your Majesty, how can we do that? Shuer had been taken such a big disadvantage. We simply cannot let this little slut." "Shut your gap. I have already said let the matter rest. This was originally Shuer's fault. Must you bring up what she did until everyone finds out about it before you will let matters rest?" Empress looked like she was stuck by lighting and lowered her head disappointedly. Although the Emperor didn't make it clear, seemingly hinting that it was Shuer's fault for seeking revenge at the Valiant Martial Manor. But in the ears of the Empress, the Emperor was clearly warning her that Shuer's loss of chastity absolutely cannot be revealed. Empress knew that the Emperor had to retain the reputation of the royal family and had chosen to forsake Li Shuer. Although she was both furious and anxious, but she could only accept this outcome. Huang Yueli saw the Empress's dejected look and, smiling, added, "Since that's the case, I thank your Majesty for pronouncing my innocence. Lear is utmost grateful." But what?" Emperor inquired. Huang Yueli smiled as she claimed, "While 7th Princess was visiting my manor, she had practically wrecked the walls and backyard. So my rooms over that area cannot be used for residence anymore. I'm just a pauper. Where would I find money to fix my house? Initially, I had intended to enter the palace to look for the 7th Princess for compensation. Now, using this opportunity, I would like to pay her a visit and, on the way, discuss with her about this." You can also listen on. Discuss? What about? Empress questioned in a guarded manner. Every single time Huang Yueli opened her mouth, the Empress's heart would jump. This wretched lass was full of wretched ideas, so every single time she spoke, it would be something bad, as though she was born to obstruct her. Undeniably, the Empress had learned her lesson well and became wiser. As expected, Huang Yueli replied. Of course it would be about to discuss on compensation. Your Majesty, as you can see, my house had collapsed, and naturally it must be rebuilt. As for the servants in my manor, they were beaten up so badly that some are maimed or seriously injured. I must naturally pay for their compensation payment. Besides, I was scared stiff by 7th Princess, who almost caused my advancement to fail. Because of that, I am still suffering from internal injury, so I would need to spend money to pay for my treatment, right? When the Empress heard these, she almost fainted on the spot. She had already been disadvantaged, and Li Shui'er had already become this manner, and now all she could do was to suffer in silence and give way to Huang Yueli. She had never expected that this lass would not be satisfied with small gains. Now, she still expected to be compensated. Empress was angered to the max as she coldly sneered. You want compensation? Fat hope. Impossible. Huang Yueli smiled. Your Majesty, I'm not asking you for compensation. Your words cannot be counted. I'll directly negotiate with 7th Princess. Quickly bring me to her chamber to look for her. Empress's heart thumped hard, and almost instantaneously she understood her motive for coming. This lass's motive was not for any compensation, but to reveal the fact that Li Shui'er had lost her chastity. If she were to bring her to look for Li Shui'er, Empress Dowager and the rest would naturally follow suit. However, Li Shui'er was now in the isolation palace, so how was she going to explain this to the Empress Dowager? She hurriedly shook her head. No way, we can't go. Shui'er had suffered serious injuries and needs to recuperate quietly. You're not allowed to go and disturb her. Huang Yueli's expressed grew chiller as she questioned, Your Majesty, what do you mean? Firstly, you malign me for harming 7th Princess, and yet you don't allow me to confront her. Now 7th Princess had wrecked my valiant martial manner, and you refuse to let me clear things up with her nor compensate me. What is this? Am I destined to let other people bully? The Empress was interrogated by her countless queries, causing her chest to rage with pain. Huang Yueli was indeed a demon, who was capable of bullying her. She had been the one who was bullying others, and using her gift of the gap, others had no chance to rebut nor redress their injustice. For that one moment, the Empress really wanted to speak out the entire truth, slapping Huang Yueli viciously on the face. But after she had calmed down, she chose to give in. How could she bear to use her daughter's reputation as a joke? So this injustice, even if she couldn't take it, she still must. All right, consider it as Shui'er's wrongdoing. Let me, her mother, help her compensate you. How much do you want? Huang Yueli pursed her lips and thought for a moment before she replied. Since 7th Princess was also injured and seemed quite pitiful, then I'll ask for lesser. 300,000 taels of gold, then. How much did you say? The Empress could not believe her ears. Huang Yueli repeated once again. 300,000 taels of gold. That's daylight robbery. Is your manor made of gold? Why do you need that much money? She could not suppress her anger any further and blew up. Even a brand new mansion located in the country's best position merely costed 10,000 taels of gold, and to construct a new palace within the royal palace was merely 20,000 taels of gold. Huang Yueli actually asked for 300,000 taels? You can also listen on. Even the Emperor's face displayed some signs of unhappiness. Lear, you've never run a household before, so you won't know how much the construction of a home costs. Later, I'll get someone from the Ministry of Revenue to drop by the valiant Marshal Manor to ascertain the damages in your manor and compensate you accordingly. Emperor suggested this compromise proposal. Empress immediately put her heart at ease. Since Emperor had already spoken, this wretched lass should know when to stop. However, Huang Yueli still shook her head. How can we do that? If the Ministry of Revenue were to come and check and just compensate a 3 or 5,000 taels, then what should I do? 3 or 5,000 taels isn't enough. Who do you think you are? How dare you demand an exorbitant price in the Emperor's presence? Huang Yueli patted her chest, displaying a frightened expression, as though she was shocked by the Empress's aggressive attitude. Your Majesty, The price I had stated is fair and reasonable. Did you know about this? When Seventh Princess came to the manor, I was in closed-door cultivation in the study room, and the courtyard had been set up with a fourth-tier spirit-gathering array. This array was not only set up using fourth-tier materials. It must be driven by fourth-grade crystals before it can work. However, Seventh Princess found a team of golden scale guards and used all their might to attack the array. Not only did they deplete all the crystal's energy, because of that, it had also broke the array completely, and all those materials cannot be reused. If I were to bring those fourth-tier materials to the auction house, it would at least be auctioned for 300,000 taels of gold. Not forgetting now that the array is broken. Where am I going to find such a high-level array master to help me set up another array? I'm just asking for compensation for the array's materials, so I'm already giving a major discount, all right. How did it turn out to be like this? Empress was dumbfounded as beads of perspiration started to form on her forehead. If what Huang Yueli said was true, then Li Shuer would have gotten herself into hot soup this time. 300,000 taels of gold. If it had been 2 months ago, Empress would have been able to come out with it. But as Crown Prince was swindled at Thousand Treasure Pavilion previously, she had taken out all her fortune to subsidize him, and she had not much left. This time, where was she going to find money to compensate? Just as Empress was loaded with anxiety, not knowing how to respond, suddenly a sound of heavy coughing echoed from behind. Immediately following that, someone spoke out, "Third Miss Bai, you're really smart at swindling money. Are you really in that much need?" From what I see, it doesn't seem to be that case. Didn't you, just a few days ago, just stole a huge amount of treasures from the royal treasury? The person who spoke was the imperial tutor. His voice sounded slightly hoarse because when the self-destruction mechanism in the royal treasury was activated, it quickly triggered the flame mechanism. The smog produced was too much, and as he had been the first to charge through, the ash had fumigated his throat, causing hoarseness. Until today, he had not recovered. When Huang Yueli heard his voice, the sides of her lips curled into an evident smile as she slowly turned around. She knew that Imperial Tutor was definitely not going to sit there just to watch a show. She had set him up in the royal treasury, so he would definitely take revenge. Moreover, since the royal treasury had met with a mishap, it was natural that the mastermind must be dug out. If Imperial Tutor didn't find trouble for her, that would become heaven's strangest occurrence. In actual fact, Imperial Tutor had indeed been thinking in this way. He had his own reason for not creating trouble with Huang Yueli at the first timing. The reason was because when he and Crown Prince had entered the royal treasury, they had not obtained the Emperor's permission. Truth be told, several years ago, Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor had already conspired with the other fourth-degree realm expert, who was in charge of protecting the royal treasury. You can also listen on. Crown Prince needed a lot of resources if he wanted to cultivate hints. He had set his sights long ago on the royal treasury and had been fishing money from the treasury, including the huge debt that he had incurred from Thousand Treasures Pavilion. He had stolen a part from the treasury before he could clear it entirely. Imperial Tutor was worried that Emperor would check in detail on the cause and effect, causing their plot to be discovered, so he hadn't dared to speak directly about the matter first. His aim in appearing today was firstly to see Empress raising difficult issues regarding Li Shuer's injury, and after Huang Yueli was forced to admit her guilt, would he then use the situation to his advantage and talk about the royal treasury's incident. In this way, Emperor had already shown his rage regarding Li Shuer's matter, and in his mind, he had already considered Huang Yueli as an evil person. So there was a huge possibility that he would not check out the details that had happened in the royal treasury and just directly sentence Huang Yueli in rage. Although Imperial Tutor's scheme was intricate, but he had never expected that the progression would be so unfavorable. Firstly, Huang Yueli managed to shut Empress's mouth using Li Shuer's reputation as a stake, as she had not dared to reveal the truth about that manner. From there, she managed to turn the situation around, not only just clearing her innocence, and in turn painting Li Shuer as an evildoer, exposing her mean ways in front of everyone and as for herself. She had been turned into the world's most innocent party who was bullied by everyone. Next, Huang Yueli had revealed her progression into second-degree realms cultivation, causing the emperor to see her in new light and not daring to pin a crime on her casually. In this way, Imperial Tutor's scheme had completely came to a standstill. If things were to continue in this manner, Huang Yueli would then successfully get herself out of this crime and made Empress pay a huge compensation. Imperial Tutor was no longer able to remain silent and fought to speak out first. By Ruoli, even if 7th Princess's injury was not caused directly by you, how about the matter that had happened in the royal treasury several days ago? How are you going to explain about that? Huang Yueli put on a blank look as she said, Imperial Tutor, sir, I don't understand what you mean. Why are all of you trying to make up some absurd stuff to slander me? What had happened in the royal treasury? And what does it have to do with me? Stop denying. Imperial Tutor sneered. Several days ago, the bodyguard dressed in black beside you had broken into the royal treasury in big to steal the treasures in the treasury. In the end, I had discovered this, and seeing that you were unable to escape, you emptied the treasury clean and made the entire royal treasury collapse. Now, because of the both of you, all the spirit stones and magical beast cores have been buried underground, and God knows how long we will need in order to get it all out. Our royal treasury is now completely empty, and the main mastermind is you, by Ruoli. Imperial Tutor's face was solemn, and his tone was severe. As he spoke, he held his chest in an agitated manner, and even his beard was sticking up. When Emperor heard this, his hand trembled as he smashed the teacup onto the ground. What? Imperial Tutor, you are saying the destruction of the royal treasury was done by Leo? How can that be? Why would she go and steal from the royal treasury? And how is it possible that she could destroy the royal treasury? Imperial Tutor heaved a sigh as his expression sunk. Your Majesty, several days ago after the treasury was buried into the ground, you had questioned me a number of times, and I had maintained my silence. That was because this entire matter was just too unimaginable. If it wasn't for the fact that I had witnessed it personally, I wouldn't believe it as well. And this reckless thief is actually by Ruoli. You can also listen on. Emperor could not believe his ears and hurriedly questioned, Imperial Tutor, what's going on? Imperial Tutor shot Huang Yueli a glance and continued. Yesterday, while Crown Prince and I were making our way back to the palace, we saw a suspicious figure from afar. We were worried that this person was hatching evil plots, so we followed him. We had never expected that his destination would be the royal treasury. Besides that, he also killed a few golden scale guards and sneakily smuggled into the treasury. Crown Prince and I immediately took chase and had an intense fight with him. Just as the thief was about to be taken down, Ruoli appeared. Besides using sneaky moves, she also activated the mechanisms in the treasury. We then realized that this thief was incited by Ruoli to steal the items at the royal treasury. Ruoli realized that she was unable to defeat us and attempted to escape, but we were hot on their tails. Out of sheer desperation, not knowing how she managed to do it, but she actually activated the self-destruction mechanism. The few of us were almost buried alive inside and barely escaped by inches. However, all the treasures in the treasury were all buried underground. As Imperial Tutor was depicting it, his expression was filled with grief and indignation. Your Majesty, you've always treated Third Miss by rather well, but she actually repaid you in this manner. She actually did such sneaky things behind your back. Moreover, when she realized that she was unable to bear the responsibility, she actually buried all the treasures that our kingdom had accumulated over the few hundred years. This is simply wanting our kingdom to be destroyed. His words seemed devoted to righteousness that inspired reverence, and momentarily, the emperor was scared stiff. Emperor's eyes widened with shock as he raged. Such a matter actually happened? No wonder when you and the crown prince escaped from the treasury. Both of you were heavily injured. Emperor turned around and interrogated Huang Yueli. By Ruoli, what Imperial Tutor had said. Is it true? A chilly glint flashed past Huang Yueli's eyes. Imperial tutor was acting as a thief calling thief. They obviously lured Moe to the royal treasury, but it made it look like he was there to steal. Such a story was rather reasonable, but unfortunately, no matter how well the story flowed, in Huang Yueli's eyes, it was full of loopholes. Besides that, Huang Yueli already expected that Imperial tutor and the Crown Prince had already been in cahoots with the guards at the treasury. Otherwise, how would they be able to freely debauch the royal treasury and even set up a trap to capture Moe? Even a ghost would not believe this. Originally, the Imperial tutor and the Crown Prince had already been fixed by Huang Yueli to a terrible state, and because she was busy with her cultivation, so she didn't have any time to hit them when they're down. But who would have expected that the Imperial tutor had that much guts? Even after being fixed by her many times, he had not learned his lesson and still dared to splash dirty water on her. Since that's the case, then don't blame her for not standing on ceremony. Just hope that the Imperial tutor and the Crown Prince would not come crying and begging her. Huang Yueli sniggered coldly and replied, "Imperial tutor, please take responsibility for your words. That day, it was the Crown Prince who went to Thousand Treasure Pavilion to wreck my shop. Besides that, he also took away more than 10 boxes of goods. My bodyguard, Moe, he went after them in order to retrieve back the goods, which was why he followed the Crown Prince's men all the way to the royal treasury. The Crown Prince misused his status to buy things without paying, which had already raised eyebrows, and the weirdest thing was he actually moved the stuff into the royal treasury. I found it strange on why the Crown Prince would head towards the royal treasury instead. This was South Yu Kingdom's national treasury, and not Crown Prince, your private treasury. When the Crown Prince heard these words, he wiggled around in the stretcher as though he was trying to get up, pointing his finger against her nose to scold her. You can also listen on. Unfortunately, no matter how much energy the Crown Prince exerted, his forehead was filled with sweat, and in the end, he was still unable to move, so he could only clench his teeth while hissing. "By Ruoli, what do you mean? How dare you slander me like this?" Huang Yueli replied, "I don't mean anything, just telling the truth only." Crown Prince retorted, "This is pure slander. I was obviously captured by your gooer." Cough, cough. Crown Prince was infuriated by Huang Yueli, and in a moment of fury, he almost spilled out the truth, so Imperial tutor pretended to cough to stop him from continuing. Crown Prince abruptly regained his senses and hastily shut his mouth. Huang Yueli's silent signed a sense of regret, but she only raised her brows and asked, "Your Highness, why did you stop? What did my bodyguard do to you?" Imperial tutor sneered, "By Ruoli, don't try to quibble. Crown Prince is the heir apparent to the throne, so what would he see in that miserly shop of yours? And to snatch in broad daylight? Moreover, he moved the things to the royal treasury? For what reason would he do that for?" That's right, I was bewildered as well. In the normal course of events, Crown Prince wouldn't do such things unless he had some schemes in mind. For example, he may have felt that His Majesty had been sitting on the throne for too long a time, and he cannot wait to ascend the throne, so he treated the royal treasury as his own. That's venomous slander. Crown Prince didn't expect her to say that as he furiously jumped up from the stretch and fell heavily back on it. "By Ruoli, how dare you speak at will? I will never let you off." Saying that, he struggled to get up. "Imperial Father, I am innocent. Please don't listen to By Ruoli's nonsense." I had never had this thinking at all. She knew that she was unable to get off the hook, so she thought of this malicious way to change the subject. "Please investigate properly." Crown Prince stared at Huang Yueli, and that vision of sight seemed to be spewing out flames. Since ancient times, what emperors had been afraid of was someone coveting their title. As the Crown Prince, he was also afraid that other people would say that he cannot wait to ascend the throne, that he wished his imperial father to quickly die. Once this crime had been validated, dethronement of Crown Prince title was just a small matter. If things didn't go well, he might be locked up or even sentenced to death. Even if it was just a rumor without sufficient evidence, the consequences would be severe. After all, Emperors were all suspicious, and once they suspect their own sons would conspire against them, then naturally the longer they see, the more unfavorable he would become and could easily pin various crimes onto his head. Crown Prince had never expected Huang Yueli to be so vicious. The minute she came, she gave him such a big hat to wear. This time, he was filled with anxiety until he almost threw up blood. Imperial Tutor also knew about the severity of this matter, so he immediately stood up and pointed against Huang Yueli's nose while admonishing her. "What a sinister little lass you are. What nonsense are you sprouting?" Crown Prince had always been loyal to his majesty, so why would he do such a thing? Do you think that by saying that you would be able to drive a wedge between his majesty and Crown Prince's relationship? He turned towards the emperor and kneeled down. "Your Majesty, please capture this audacious woman who dared to deceive you and offend the superiors. She's planning to slander Crown Prince." Comparing Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor's tension and anxiety, Huang Yueli was not pressured at all as she smiled steadily. "Imperial Tutor, sir, your highness, what are you getting nervous over? I haven't finished my sentence. If you had never done such a thing, why would you be afraid of me talking about it? You can also listen on." Imperial Tutor choked, and as he lifted his head to look at the emperor, he found his expression looking somewhat different, as though his suspicions had deepened. Huang Yueli's criticisms were simply too devastating. Imperial Tutor knew Huang Yueli was full of tricks and had wanted to shoo her away quickly, but after she had put in that way, it looked like they were plotting a rebellion. He was extremely nervous that Huang Yueli would reveal the evidence. At once, the emperor said, "Lear, what do you know exactly? Don't be afraid and tell me everything. With me here, no one would dare to threaten you." Imperial Tutor had outsmarted himself, and as he felt nauseous in his heart, he had to continue bearing this feeling and swallowed back the words that he had wanted to rebuke Huang Yueli. At this juncture, no matter what he said was wrong and would only been deemed as having a guilty conscience, so he might as well let Huang Yueli continue speaking. Imperial Tutor shot a "don't be rash" gaze to Crown Prince, which stopped his rebuttal for now. It was a bogus matter, so what can Huang Yueli make up? By then, they would surely be able to find flaws in her conversation and would definitely be able to clear their names. Huang Yueli turned towards the emperor and continued, "Reporting to your majesty. Each of us sticks to our own version, so just based on our testimony, it's impossible to judge who is speaking the truth. But I have evidence." "What evidence?" Emperor inquired. "That day when Crown Prince came to snatch goods from my store, the passerbys nearby had all witnessed it with their eyes, and the surrounding shops were more or less affected by the commotion. If your majesty were to send someone to check, you'd definitely find out the answer." Emperor nodded and summoned a guard. "Go to 1,000 Treasure Pavilion to check if what Lear said was true." Imperial Tutor sneered. "This can be counted as evidence? Who knows if you had already colluded with the neighboring businesses so as to let them be witnesses for you?" Huang Yueli smiled indifferently. "Whether it's collusion or not, His Majesty will be able to judge." Imperial Tutor's words have no substance behind it, so how accurate could that be? Imperial Tutor came to a standstill because he was perceived once again as though he held a guilty conscience. Whatever he said didn't sound right. However, besides Imperial Tutor, another person couldn't figure it out. Empress Dowager raised her eyebrow. "Lear, it's not that I don't believe you, but the Crown Prince's character had always been pretty good, and he had never shown this kind of behavior of forcibly occupying other people's assets previously. Even if your 1,000 Treasure Pavilion was the largest auction house in the kingdom, what motive did he have to risk the danger of being disdained by others and rob your store?" Huang Yueli replied, "Your Highness, there's something that you don't know of. 2 months ago, Crown Prince had once participated in 1,000 Treasure Pavilion's auction and successfully bided for a set of profound armor. However, after he bided, he claimed that 1,000 Treasure Pavilion was fraudulent, and not only did he not pay up, he also prepared to snatch the set, but luckily he was stopped by our guards. Subsequently, he got to know that 1,000 Treasure Pavilion was gifted to me by Prince Yuang, and as he had always harbored hard feelings, he came forward to seek revenge while Prince Yuan was not around. Oh, such a matter really happened? Yes. Many people had participated in the auction, not only the royalties from our South Yu kingdom. Even the royalty from neighboring countries had sent their men here to take part in it. This matter was widely known, so your majesty can go ahead and send someone to investigate. Emperor immediately sent another person out to investigate. At this moment, even though the investigation had not been completed, but in the emperor's heart, he had already believed most of this. No matter how much preparation Huang Yueli had, it was impossible for her to have bribed the neighboring royal family. You can also listen on. Not only that, in the emperor's heart, he was extremely dissatisfied with the crown prince. To renegade on a debt after taking part in an auction. How could a crown prince of a nation act in this way? He was simply like a hooligan. If word was to spread, it would definitely become a joke to anyone. If it was just embarrassment in normal times, he can forego this, but this round, Huang Yueli had mentioned that it was in front of the neighboring royalty's face. Wouldn't this make the royal family of the South Yu kingdom become a laughing stock in front of other countries' royalties? Imperial tutor could tell that Emperor was extremely dissatisfied and hastily added, "By Raoli, stop trying to twist the facts. The matter that had happened at Thousand Treasure Pavilion's auction have nothing to do with today's matter. Even if the crown prince and you already had a feud, it doesn't mean anything. Who doesn't know that you had embarrassed the crown prince at the Peach Blossom Banquet? But this had no connection to the royal treasury being buried at all. Why is there no connection?" Huang Yueli sniggered and couldn't be bothered with the imperial tutor as she turned to report to the emperor. "Your Majesty, this is what had happened. The crown prince had been upset at making a loss at Thousand Treasure Pavilion and bore this hatred in his heart ever since. That day when he came to smash and rob Thousand Treasure Pavilion, by the time my bodyguard Mo, he had arrived, he had already transported the items away, and Mo, he started to give chase all the way to the treasury." Huang Yueli took a glance at Crown Prince and continued, "Mo, he had just arrived at South Yu Kingdom along with me, just a few days ago. He doesn't understand the situation in our country, and obviously he wouldn't know that was the royal treasury, so he foolishly followed them in. After he entered the place, he realized that Crown Prince had actually treated the royal treasure as his own residence's treasury, so whenever he needed money, he would just pilfer it from there and use those money to feed his own army. Crown Prince thought that he had discovered his secret, so he wanted to silence him. Mo, he had not returned after a long time, so I came along to check things out, following the secret markings that he left along the way, and found my way to the inside of the treasury. Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor knew they were not able to cover things up any longer and was afraid that I would leak out the plot, that they were conspiring, so they decided to come out with a murderous scheme and activated the treasury's self-destruction mechanisms in an attempt to bury us alive inside. Luckily, Mo Yi's power was just enough to help us escape from there. This is the entire process of development of the treasury, so Your Majesty, please investigate clearly." The emperor's eyes widened, not believing what he had heard. Huang Yueli's story was convincing, and moreover the cause and effect was listed down clearly. Huang Yueli and Imperial Tutor had their own views, but Imperial Tutor said Huang Yueli had attempted to enter the royal treasury to steal, but he had insufficient evidence to back up his story. On the other hand, Huang Yueli had shown hard evidence of the accusation on Crown Prince of robbing Thousand Treasure Pavilion. In this way, Emperor was already leaning towards Huang Yueli's story. Crown Prince knew something was amiss, and he was extremely nervous. If Emperor really had this thinking formed, then his status of Crown Prince would be gone with the wind. To him, he was most afraid of losing his status of Crown Prince. After so many years of studying in Celestial Light Academy, he clearly knew that there is no limit in the universe. There were many talents who were much more outstanding than him in the South Sky region. If he had no way of improving himself further, to be accepted as an outer disciple of the Celestial Light Sect, then his cultivation route would probably come to a standstill at Fourth Degree Realm. By then, his only choice would be to return to South Yu Kingdom. In this way, At least he would be able to ascend as Southview Kingdom's emperor, and his future would be filled with endless riches. But if he were to lose the royal throne's right of inheritance and driven out of Southview Kingdom, then he would be no different from the normal vagrant practitioners. You can also listen on. The Crown Prince had already berated Huang Yue several thousand times in his mind, and supporting his shaky body and clenching his teeth, he tried his best to clear his reputation in front of the emperor. Imperial Father, please don't be deceived by her slanderous report. The situation was different from how she put it. I was bitter about the unbearable grievances, so it was true that I brought my men to Thousand Treasure Pavilion to create a stir, but I have never ever plotted a rebellion. The Royal Treasury's incident was not due to me. It was all due to this slut by Rooli. Empress also knelt down and lamented, "That's right, Your Majesty. Ma Juan would never do this kind of thing." Enough. Emperor was extremely frustrated by their endless crying and complaining. Instead of coming up with evidence, all they could do was to lament. Did they think that he, as an emperor, had no brains and was unable to tell between right and wrong? Emperor swept the audience with a chilly glance and said, "Lear has already provided witness for her part. How about Imperial Tutor's evidence? I am not someone who just listen only, but without actual evidence. How can I ascertain that what you're saying is the truth?" The Crown Prince was dumbstruck. During the battle that day, Huang Yue acted almighty and arrogant, and even admitted that she had trespassed once into the royal treasury and took away several valuables. But she had not left any evidence behind. Even the other golden-scaled guards who assisted the Imperial Tutor to attack Moe were all buried alive in the treasury. Imperial Tutor creased his eyebrows, unable to make anything out. It was only at this juncture that they shockingly realized that they had unknowingly been led round in circles by Huang Yue, falling into her trap. It was obvious that since Huang Yue removed all the valuable treasures, she was also afraid of being discovered, so she had intentionally let the Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor out from the treasury. Her main aim was to make them her scapegoat. It was indeed their fault in the first place, as they had intentionally lured Huang Yue's bodyguard into the royal treasury, so everyone would affirm that no matter what happened in the royal treasury, it was their wrongdoing. No one would ever believe that Huang Yue was the one who had taken away all the treasures and destroyed all evidence by burying it into the ground. The Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor were not able to defend themselves, but Huang Yue had more to say. The sides of her lips curled up ever so little as she slowly reported, "There's another important proof, and that is not many people knew about the self-destruction mechanism in the royal treasury. So why would it suddenly be activated? The Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor keep insisting that I'm the one who destroyed the royal treasury. But I'm not a member of the royal family, so how would I know such a huge secret?" Emperor was stunned, as these words seemed to strike like lightning into his chest. That's true. The self-destruction mechanism in the royal treasury was the biggest secret concerning the fate of the nation, so how would a lass like Huang Yue know about it? On the other hand, Imperial Tutor and the Crown Prince were mostly likely to have a chance to obtain information about this secret, especially the Crown Prince, as he had plenty of chances to enter the Imperial study and obtain the distribution map of the mechanisms. So the person who activated the self-destruction mechanism was definitely not Huang Yue. As for the Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor, since they had the guts to go to this extent and steal the distribution map from his Imperial study, they must be up to no good, and this evidently showed that they harbored plans to revolt. You can also listen on. Emperor was already sure on this point, as his expression turned green, and clutching his chest, he stretched out his fingers and pointed at the Crown Prince, trembling nonstop and unable to speak. You are an unfilial son." The Crown Prince was frightened till his soul almost flew out of his body and explained repeatedly, "Imperial Father, I was not the one who activated the self-destruction mechanism. It's not me. It was by Rooli. It's really her. It has nothing to do with me." However, no matter how he explained, Emperor refused to believe him. How could the emperor ever believe that Huang Yueli was an armament master whose potential had gone beyond his imagination and was able to easily crack all of the royal treasury's mechanisms? In his eyes, Huang Yueli was merely a 14-year-old young lady. She had also not exposed her innate gift as an armament master, so who would even think of that possibility? Besides that, the mechanisms in the royal treasury were personally set up by a 7th-rank armament master when South Yu Kingdom was at its peak, and from then till now, several hundred years had passed. Unless an 8th-rank armament master were to show up, then there would be a possibility that these mechanisms could be cracked. But why would this type of person appear in South Yu Kingdom? Therefore, upon hearing his explanation, Emperor's anger was not appeased, but instead grew. Enough, you're such a pighead. How can you even come out with this lie? This only shows that you're usually full of lies. I have been wrong about you all along and didn't manage to realize that you have improper intentions. No, it's not true. The Crown Prince was unable to explain himself clearly, and he had already used up all his energy as his entire meridians and acupoints were damaged. Under the psychological attack, he threw up a big mouthful of blood. Imperial Tutor hastily explained, "Your Majesty, it didn't happen in that way." What the Crown Prince said was true. That time when we were about to be defeated by Bairooli and her bodyguard, she was the one who activated the mechanism in the treasury. It really was her. Emperor sneered as he was completely disappointed by Imperial Tutor and the Crown Prince. He spoke in a frosty tone. "Oh, it was Bairooli? You meant that Bairooli was able to fish out information from my mouth on how to activate the self-destruct mechanism? Or are you trying to tell me that she is an 8th-rank armament master? Which possibility do you think it is?" "This neither. I don't get it as well, but that's enough. Stop spouting nonsense. Your schemes have been completely exposed, and you still dare to deny." The emperor was brimming with anger, refusing to listen to any explanation. He raised his hand and summoned the golden scale guards standing right by the main hall's entrance. "Men, bring the Crown Prince back to East Palace and put him under house arrest. Summon the Minister of Internal Affairs into the palace. I want to prepare an imperial edict to depose of the Crown Prince." "What? Imperial Father, I'm innocent." The Crown Prince tried his best to stand up, but he was totally immovable. The golden scale guards moved forward and easily subdued him before carrying him down. "Stop! All of you stop!" Empress stopped herself right in front of the golden scale guards, but she was unable to block them, so she turned around and fell below the emperor's feet, sobbing terribly. "Your Majesty, you cannot do this to Majuan. Majuan, he's been framed by Bairooli, that little slut. This little slut has treacherous intent. What she's doing is obviously to let Li Moying replace Majuan as the Crown Prince. So she set up a scheme to frame Majuan." Huang Yueli sniggered. What a joke. With Moying's innate gift and power, would he even bother about the South Yu Kingdom's throne? Only people with weak powers like Li Majuan would view the Crown Prince status as invaluable. "Bairooli, you little slut." Empress suddenly turned around and stared daggers at her. You can also listen on. The expression on Huang Yueli's face was as indifferent as before. "Your Majesty, you're the motherly figure of the nation and is deemed as the role model for all the women in our nation. How could you act like a shrew and say out such obscenities, which are simply not suitable for the ear? His Majesty's face have all been lost by you. Enough. Men, bring Empress back to her palace for her to calm down. If she's not able to, then she don't need to keep her role as the Empress anymore." Emperor looking at Empress chillingly as he spoke in a frosty tone. In his heart, suspicions had already formed against the Empress. The Crown Prince was born by Empress after all, so if the Crown Prince had evil intents, would the Empress totally be kept in the dark? Before this incident, hadn't Empress murdered Empress Ming in order to stabilize her own position and almost killed Li Moying as well? Such an unscrupulous woman like her, would she really not have any inkling to this conspiracy at all? The Empress unbelievably widened her eyes as she wailed, "Your Majesty, I really am innocent." She had never, in her wildest dream, expect the emperor to not only depose crown prince, but also have the intent to depose her title of empress as well. She tried her hardest and begged for mercy, but was still dragged away by the golden scale guards. Before her departure, her gaze stopped tenaciously on Huang Yueli as her heart was filled with grievance. Both the crown prince and her position had always been well fortified, and the crown prince had always been the #1 talent, admired and praised by everyone in South Yu Kingdom. The crown prince was about to marry the talented consort and ascend the throne. Things had been going along smoothly, but the entire setup had been broken by Huang Yueli and Li Moying. How did it end up like this? She was really not resigned at all, but no matter how unresigned she felt, there was nothing she could do about it. Huang Yueli's gaze was icy cold, and when their gazes met, she didn't speak a word more. She had always been lazy to spend any time talking to losers. Pitiful people must have some hateful aspects, especially for people like Empress. She was only courting trouble for herself. Emperor watched as Empress departed and turned his gaze towards Imperial Tutor. Imperial Tutor, you've made me so disappointed. Since you had contributions to our South Yu Kingdom, I don't want to excoriate you further. But from now onwards, choose either to retire in South Yu Kingdom and not dabble in court affairs in future, or please kindly leave South Yu Kingdom. Emperor naturally knew that since they had already shed all pretenses of cordiality, leaving the Imperial Tutor around would be a hidden threat in future. But Imperial Tutor was after all a 4th-degree realm expert, and was someone who could be easily dealt with. If one was careless, not only were they not able to capture him, he might exact revenge in different ways in future. To prevent him from doing something desperate after being cornered, Emperor could only banish him to end this matter. But even so, Imperial Tutor was enraged. What? You dare to treat me in this manner? On what basis? Just because you're the Emperor, you think I'm really afraid of you? Outraged, Imperial Tutor snorted heavily and unleashed the profound energy in his body. Intense pressure instantly surrounded every corner of the main hall. Everyone present started to clutch their chests as they bent over. Imperial Tutor's lips curled into a chilling smile. A bunch of trash. They actually wanted him to leave South Yu Kingdom. However, his smile congealed at the very next moment, because another jet of profound energy, more intense and pure than his, came shooting towards him. The profound energy that Imperial Tutor unleashed was forced back, and it heavily impacted his meridians, agitating the Imperial Tutor to vomit out a mouthful of blood. You, who exactly are you? Imperial Tutor gazed warily behind Huang Yueli. That bodyguard who kept close to Huang Yueli kept his power hidden and was extremely respectful to her. You can also listen on. But his power was astonishing. That day in the royal treasury, Imperial Tutor and the rest had thought that under the assistance of the mechanisms in the treasury, they estimated that they would only need a quarter of an hour before they could take him down. However, Immerse had persisted with them for several hours, and with Huang Yueli's aid, he had managed to defeat all of them. Today had been the same. He had stayed behind Huang Yueli quietly, to the extent of being an invisible man, masking his existence from everyone. But the minute he stuck, it had been so powerful that Imperial Tutor was not his opponent. Immerse kept silent, and after Imperial Tutor had vomited blood from his injury, he went back to his position behind Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli smiled indifferently. Imperial Tutor, are you talking about Immerse? He is merely a bodyguard. Merely a bodyguard. When everyone in the main hall heard that, they could not help but wipe the cold sweat off their foreheads. To be able to put pressure on the Imperial Tutor easily, this quiet man must at least have reached a cultivation level of 5th-degree realm. 5th-degree realm experts were widely valued by everyone everywhere. Was an Imperial Tutor, who was only at 4th-degree realm, doing rather well in South Yu Kingdom, becoming the #1 important minister? If it was a 5th-degree realm expert, things would be even more different. Huang Yueli could actually find such a person to be your bodyguard, and for the other party to be so respectful. and it was respect right out from his heart. How was she able to do it? Huang Yueli didn't bother to explain, and only replied, "Imperial tutor, sir, you have heard His Majesty's words. I'd advise you to respect His Majesty's decision and leave South Yu Kingdom on your own accord. Otherwise, I don't mind letting my bodyguard help you with it and send you off personally. However, he's not someone gentle, so, by them, Imperial tutor might not be feeling so happy. Not only unhappy, it would be simply asking for his life." Imperial tutor recalled that fateful day in the royal treasury. When Mo.E struck out, he had tied so many of them into a rice dumpling and put Crown Prince into a gunny sack, dragging him all the way from his palace to the treasury. Imperial tutor's face turned green as his eyebrows twitched subconsciously. Terrifying, too terrifying. This wretched lass's bodyguard had indeed gained some knowledge from her, as he was as sinister and cunning as she was. Recalling to this point, Imperial tutor had not dared to be rash. He swept his sleeves heavily. "All right, I will leave now. Today's matter, I will keep it at the back of my mind. Even if you come begging me in future to return, that's plain wishful thinking." Huang Yueli smiled sweetly and replied, "Don't worry, no one will be that desperate, Imperial tutor. Oops, that's not right. You're no longer the Imperial tutor. Old man, be careful on your way out. You're so old already, so don't blame it on me if you fall or bang anything on your way out." Imperial tutor was already on his way out of the main hall, but when he heard these words, his legs stumbled and he almost fell over. He turned around and gave Huang Yueli a ferocious stare, but didn't dare to say anything and left dejectedly. After this farce had ended, Huang Yueli didn't want to stay any longer and immediately requested a leave. In one day, Emperor had deposed a crown prince and empress and banished the imperial tutor. This was the most shocking matter in the entire South Yu Kingdom. The palace had immediately turned disorderly. On Huang Yueli and Mo.Yi's way out from the royal palace, they had already seen several chaotic scenes. However, these had nothing to do with Huang Yueli. She and Mo.E headed back to Valiant Marshall Manor. As expected, she received another gaze of worship from Mo.E. You can also listen on. Third miss, you're indeed an outstanding, intelligent person. When I saw the Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor today, I had thought that the matter in the royal treasury would be exposed and we would need to kill our way out. I never expect that with your words, not only did you foil Imperial Tutor's plot, but also depose the Crown Prince directly. Mo.Yi's praises had indeed came from his inner heart. Before this, the most black-bellied and resourceful person he had ever seen was Lemoyne. In Mo.Yi's eyes, there was no woman who was worthy of his master. At most, they could only try to stay within the range in terms of innate talent and cultivation. As for other aspects, they don't even need to wish for it. But as fact had proven itself, there were still women who were worthy of Lemoyne. Besides that, his master's sight was especially good. He had actually sought Huang Yueli, a talented young lady from such a small place, such as South Yu Kingdom. From Mo.Yi's view, no matter in which aspect, both of them were extremely compatible. If there was something to pick about, it would be Huang Yueli's looks because it could not match up against Lemoyne. But not knowing if it was his misperception, but he felt that these few days, Huang Yueli seemed to look much prettier than before. Actually, Mo.E had not known about this. Huang Yueli's looks were not born in this way, but was due to the intensity of the flame spirit physique. It not only suppressed her cultivation, it had also altered her looks. With every advancement that Huang Yueli went through, her looks would also change. Like a flower bud gradually extending its petals, slowly bit by bit, blossoming into an unmatched magnificence belonging to her alone. Huang Yueli smiled and said, "That was just an appetizer. It was mainly because the few of them were too dumb. Brother Mo.E, I'm going to feel embarrassed from your praises." Mo.E laughingly shook his head and didn't speak any further. But he had already decided that he must write Lemoyne a letter today to tell him about Huang Yueli's performance. He believed that his master would be very interested to know what had happened. After the Crown Prince had been deposed, There was an upheaval in the entire nation. There were discussions amongst the people, making guesses that after Crown Prince's loss of power, which prince would replace him to become the new Crown Prince. Limoying was the hot favorite because his power was absurdly strong that the other princes were not on the same ladder as him. In many people's eyes, he was inevitably the next choice for Crown Prince election, and as for Huang Yueli, her status had naturally been raised to the future Crown Prince consort. At the present moment, people from all walks of life used different ways to link themselves to Huang Yueli, and the number of people who were trying to fawn on her had increased, so Valiant Marshal Manor's front yard was as busy as a marketplace. Even so, Huang Yueli was unaffected since the beginning, as she had already passed the entire matter to Kai Wei and Mo to settle, while she had shut herself into closed-door cultivation in the backyard. Besides cultivating, she had also been pondering on the treasure that Bai Lu Feng had left for her. The jade token that she had retrieved from the blood feather silk cage previously was the only clue. On this particular day, Huang Yueli brought out the jade token, and while she was about to carefully inspect it when Mo coincidentally walked in. When he saw the jade token in Huang Yueli's hand from afar, Mo let out an astonished expression. Huang Yueli realized that something was wrong and asked puzzledly, "Brother Mo, what's wrong with you?" Mo pointed at the jade token and inquired, "Third miss you, why do you have that thing?" You can also listen on. Huang Yueli was stunned momentarily, and following that, her eyes sparkled. Hearing Mo Yi's tone, he seemed to know the origins of this jade token. Huang Yueli hurriedly questioned, "Brother Mo do you know something about it?" Mo took the jade token in her hand, and against the light, he inspected carefully before speaking out. "This jade token is Celestial Light's core student identity token." Huang Yueli was dumbstruck. She had assumed that the item Bai Lu Feng had left was an exceptional treasure or some high-level treasure box key, but in the end, it was just some school's identity token. This type of identity token was available in every school, so not only was it used to identity the identity of the student, it also recorded the student's grading in that school. It was really some lousy thing that you could find on the streets. Even a Celestial Light Academy was the most famous school in the South Sky region, but this thing was still worthless. Mo left the jade token on the table, pointed to the back of it, and continued, "Do you see the word Celestial Light here? Third miss, had you never considered this before? Moreover, do you see the figures indicated here? The number 1 on the identity token means this is the number 1 core student in the Celestial Light Academy, who is quite an authority. This identity token of yours, where did you get it from?" Huang Yueli's eyes widened with surprise and seemed a little blurry. "This means—" "All right, I thought differently. To tell you the truth, this identity token was left to me by my father, saying that he had left a number of treasures for me, and the only clue is this jade token." Mo was dumbstruck. "This is Marquis Bai's remnant?" "That's right," Huang Yueli nodded. "That year, my father was a 7-degree realm expert, and the things he had left behind for me, which I had thought would be something valuable. I make a guess previously that this might be the Celestial Light Disciple's identity token, but I saw junior brother Luo's identity token, and it didn't look like this. I had never considered the possibility that this would be the Celestial Light Academy's identity token. When Mo heard that this item was left behind by the future father-in-law of his master, he instantly felt somewhat scorching and hurriedly and carefully placed the jade token back. "Third miss, this identity token is an exceptional item. Celestial Light Academy is, after all, a place where Celestial Light Sect sought South Sky Region's talents, and to be able to be placed first in the ranking among the core disciples, one must definitely be an exceptional talent. The only thing is, such a talent would surely be taken into the Celestial Light Sect as an official disciple, but why did Marquis Bai join the Celestial Light Sect? Could it be that this identity token is not his? This I'm not sure. My father had already gone missing when I was still very young." Huang Yueli shook her head as she explained. Just as the both of them were conversing, Kai Wei was delivering snacks and overheard their conversation and couldn't help but to join in. Third miss, I've heard other people talk about this matter previously. Oh, both of them looked towards her. Kai Wei continued. Marquis Bai was a student of the Celestial Light Academy that year, and during the entrance exams, he came in first. In the entire of South Yu Kingdom's history, this was the first time, so it was rumored to have caused a huge commotion. The late emperor had personally conferred the horizontal inscribed board to commentate him, and it is exactly that piece that is hung in the manor's main hall now. Huang Yuli was surprised slightly. So it was like this. Since that's the case, that it all matches up. She flipped the jade token around, and after inspecting it for a while, she inquired, Brother Mo, the word celestial light on the back refers to celestial light sect. Then what do these numbers on the front represent? Surely it cannot be the results that my father had obtained that year in the academy, right? You can also listen on. Moe's face revealed an extremely puzzled look as well, and after staring at the jade token for quite a while, at least he still shook his head. This, I do not know. Perhaps it's some clue that Marquis Bai left? Huang Yuli couldn't hide her disappointment. After figuring out for so long, I still don't know what my father wanted to tell me. Sigh, if he wanted to leave something for me, why would he come out with a riddle? He should just directly give me a treasure map. And Mo-e consoled. Marquis Bai had your considerations at heart. He might be afraid that you're too young when he left you the items, and it might end up in the hands of bad people. Huang Yuli said, I understand the meaning behind it, but in this case, I will need to spend a lot of time trying to find the treasures that father had left, and I don't know what he's trying to tell me exactly. And Mo-e thought for a moment and suggested, why not we inform Master of this matter? And Celestial Light Sect have some connections, so he might be able to find out more things. This was the best opportunity to curry favor with his future mistress. So Mo-e left that if he could help Li Moying grasp hold of this matter, it would make his master extremely delighted and see him in new light. However, Huang Yuli frowned and replied, no need. This matter, I will handle it myself. Li Moying has his own matters to settle. Who knows if the matter he had to deal with previously when he rushed back to the sect has been settled, so I don't want to trouble him. Huang Yuli subconsciously rejected Moe's suggestion. During this period of time, she had been intentionally avoiding Li Moying. Li Moying had written a letter to her twice, and when Moe brought it to her, she didn't read it, so naturally she didn't give him any reply. Since it was decided that she would draw the line between Li Moying and herself, she would not seek Li Moying's help. Otherwise, the relationship between the both of them would never be cut, and she had no way of reciprocating Li Moying's feelings, yet still seek his help. Wouldn't it be considered as using him? And Moe hurriedly replied, it's no trouble. Master had always been concerned about third Mrs. predicament. The sex matters would be resolved sooner or later, it's just a matter of time. However, Huang Yuli didn't continue from there, and very quickly, she changed topics. Since there are no other clues, then the only way would be to start from Celestial Light Academy. I have thought of several ways to smuggle into Celestial Light Academy. All right, I had heard by Ruo Chi mention several times that she was preparing for this year's enrollment into Celestial Light Academy. When is the enrollment period? Huang Yuli summoned Kai Wei to go out and find more information. By evening time, Kai Wei reported back. Third miss, I've already found out that all academies in South Sky region open their enrollment period for newbies in May, and by then, all talents from various countries in the South Sky region will gather in Sky Cloud City, fighting to be enrolled into the academy of their choice. There are quite a number of people in the South Yu Kingdom who will be traveling to Sky Cloud City to enroll. Oh really? Besides by Ruo Chi, who else will be going? Huang Yuli questioned. Kai Wei replied, there are many other people. All those under 16 years of age with at least third-grade talent are all preparing to try their luck at the Sky Cloud City and fight for the opportunity to enter one of the academies. However, Celestial Light Academy is the #1 school in the South Sky region, and only second miss might have a slight chance of being selected. As for the others, they all know that they would not be selected, so they're preparing to enroll for other academies. You can also listen on. After Huang Yueli had obtained reliable news, she did a rough calculation. It was nearing the end of March, and there was slightly more than a month before the start of enrollment of Celestial Light Academy. From South Yu Kingdom to Sky Cloud City, the journey would take around a month or so. So to speak, the latest time they need to travel to Sky Cloud City would be at most 10 days later. She needed to use these 10 days of time efficiently. Firstly, Huang Yueli still needed to further stabilize her cultivation and also to refine a large number of profound armaments in case of a possible period of need. After all, this trip to Sky Cloud City was one of the largest and prosperous cities among the South Sky region, and there were plentiful experts everywhere, unlike the small nation like South Yu Kingdom. In South Yu Kingdom, Imperial Tutor just used his status as a 4th-degree realm cultivator, and he could already lord over the other people, but in Sky Cloud City, 4th-degree realm practitioners could only be considered as an ordinary cultivator. Only 6th-degree realm practitioners were barely considered as top exponents, while 7th-degree realm practitioners could also have been found. To be able to have the power to take root in Sky Cloud City, one must have at least an 8th-degree realm practitioner as a base, and those influential powerhouses have several 8th-degree realm practitioners and sometimes even 9th-degree realm experts. Therefore, after entering Sky Cloud City, she must be extremely careful. So making preparations in advance was necessary. Besides that, Huang Yueli also selected some servants who had a much higher innate talent than the rest. Along with Kai Wei, she let them to undergo special training under Immerse. She had been preparing to bring these people along to Sky Cloud City, so it was absolutely necessary for them to strengthen up. What was worth mentioning was under Immerse's Spartan training and Huang Yueli's endless supply of 3rd-grade pills, these servants managed to obtain a breakthrough within a short period of time. Especially Kai Wei. She was already a Chi Profound Realm 4th-level practitioner. 10 days passed by quickly. Huang Yueli settled the affairs in the manor and asked for Manager Son of the 1,000 Treasure Pavilion, and after exhorting repeatedly, she prepared for her departure for the next morning. However, on this evening, when Huang Yueli was still packing her luggage, Immerse hastily rushed in. Third miss. Something bad had happened. Huang Yueli seldom saw Immerse so agitated and started to feel worried. Brother Immerse, calm down. Tell me slowly what had happened. Immerse reported. Earlier, Master sent a white-breasted falcon to deliver urgent news, saying he had met with some trouble in the sect and wants all of the dispersed shadow guards to return immediately. It's the first time I have received such an order, so from the looks of it, Master must have met with a mountable problem. Huang Yueli's brows creased when she heard that. How could this happen? There's actually something which could stump Li Moying? Will he be in danger? Just thinking that Li Moying might have met with some intractable trouble, or even be in danger, Huang Yueli started to tense up. Immerse was filled with worries as well, but he didn't want to let Huang Yueli worry too much. Third miss, don't worry. With Master's capability, no one will be able to easily touch him. You should be able to successfully overcome those small matters. But in this way, I cannot disobey his commands and must return to the sect immediately. My apologies, I had originally promised to send Third Miss to the Sky Cloud City. Huang Yueli replied, Mine is just a small matter, just going on a trip and attending the entrance examinations, not to go for some expedition trial, so I don't need anyone to send me there. It's better that you place your emphasis on Li Moying's matter first. You can also listen on. After consideration, Huang Yueli didn't feel at ease and said, Do you want me to follow you back to the sect? I feel ill at least. Furthermore, even though my cultivation cannot be matched against yours, but in terms of array formation or refinery of armaments, I have some academic attainments, so perhaps I might come in handy? Immerse shook his head and refused vehemently. Third miss, I appreciate your good intentions, and I thank you on behalf of my master. But Master had specially mentioned that he wishes for you to go for the entrance examinations in Sky Cloud City and not follow me back. Please don't be offended, but you're the love of my master's life. However, your cultivation level is just too different. If anyone were to figure this out and use you to threaten Master instead, It would only make him divert his attention, so it will be best if you stay behind. Huang Yueli pursed her lips indignantly, but what Mo said was the truth, and she could not deny it. Her cultivation level is now at defensive profound, realm 9 level, and in combination with the profound armament in her hands, it was more than enough to deal with 4th degree realm practitioners. But for enemies to be able to pressurize Li Moying would obviously be practitioners with 7th degree realm and above, which is clearly not on the same level as the current her. So if she were to insist on following, then it would really create problem for Li Moying. Hence, she could only nod her head. That's fine as well. Please be careful on your trip. I have some profound armaments and hidden contraptions which I had refined, and pills as well. Do bring along. Mo hastily rejected. How can I take these? Third miss, you're already going to Sky Cloud City on your own. What if you meet with trouble on the way? Please keep these for yourselves. Don't worry, Master would definitely not get into any trouble. Mo had flatly declined for the longest time, and eventually he only accepted some pills for emergency use. As for profound armaments, he rejected accepting it all the way. Before dawn, Missouri, he had already left throughout the night. Huang Yueli looked at his departing silhouette, but her heart had already flown to thousands of miles away. She wondered how Li Moying was to have issued an urgent order to recall all the shadow guards. He must be in exceptional danger. Huang Yueli frowned and felt that her heart was empty. Not knowing why, she had a bad premonition, as if something bad was about to happen. In a pavilion in the outskirts of South Yu Kingdom, a gracefully poised, youthful, jade-like beauty leaned against the parapet, looking afar. Not long after, a man dressed in navy blue bodysuit made use of martial movements and dashed into the pavilion. The beauty hurriedly welcomed the man. Senior Brother Zhua, how is it? Zhua Fangping let out a smile. Junior Sister Murong is indeed spot on. After that shadow guard received your letter, he did not have any suspicions and thought Senior Brotherly had indeed gotten into trouble, so he had already left for the sect in the middle of the night. Murong Fei's lips curled up into a chilly smile. That's great, just great. In this way, there are no top exponents beside by Ruoli, that wretched lass. That is indeed so. So Fangping nodded. The guards and personal maid that Biroli brought along had terrible cultivation levels, and only that Shadow Guard had exceptional cultivation. Now that he had left, Biroli is now at the mercy of others. Murong Fei agitatedly walked back and forth in the pavilion as she couldn't help but broke out into a wide smile. Things are going very smoothly. Senior Brother Zhua, it's all thanks to your help. Now, once Biroli leaves the kingdom, then you can take action. A murderous intent flashed past Murong Fei's eyes. Dared to snatch her man? This slut was simply looking for death. You can also listen on. Zhua Fangping was puzzled and inquired, Junior Sister Murong, Biroli is just a 2nd degree realm practitioner and her power is exceptionally low, so to kill her takes no effort at all. I can help you kill her immediately. Why should we wait till tomorrow? Murong Fei shook her head. Senior Brother Zhua, there's some things that you don't know about. Things are not that simple. Anyway, please do as I say. Once the matter is done, you will have my utmost gratitude. Naturally, there was some reason to not harm Huang Yueli in South Yu Kingdom, as South Yu Kingdom was Li Moying's hometown, so he would have planted spies who others don't know about, and if they left out a loophole, it would be easily figured out by him. Even Murong Fei would not be able to take on Li Moying's anger, but there was no reason to let Zhua Fangping, the scapegoat, know about these. Saying that, Murong Fei's pair of autumn-watery eyes affixed on his Zhua Fangping, as her deep red cherry lips curled up slightly, revealing her teeth as she smiled. Thank you, Senior Brother Zhua. That sweet, soft vocal seemed like a strong whiskey, making one intoxicated. This was the first time Zhua Fangping had smiled so sweetly at him, so he was exceptionally delighted as he felt dizzy, without a care for anything else. Don't mention it. It's my honor to be able to assist Junior Sister. I don't need any thanks. If Junior Sister had uses for me, I'd already feel very happy. Looking at Zhuo Fangping's infatuated gaze, Murong Fei sneered secretly in her heart. Such a foolish man. Just one smile was enough to hook him. What was the point? Only Li Moying, that icy cold frost, aloof arrogance, but unexpectedly strong, so strong that under one glance, one would tremble from head to toe. Only a man like this was compatible for her, Murong Fei. And that wretched lass actually hoped to become Li Moying's fiancée? The consequence of dared to fight for a man with her could only be death. On the second morning, Huang Yueli had woke up early as she prepared to set off. She brought along Kai Wei onto the carriage and also brought along some servants who mounted the horses, following behind the carriage. The carriage went along the official route ahead and set off towards the outskirts of the nation. From afar, she could hear someone crying. Huang Yueli lifted the curtains in the carriage, and upon looking outwards, she saw some familiar figures. Seventh Princess, by Ruo Qi, an imperial tutor, stood by the side of the carriage. On the other side was the Empress. As she was crying, she used her handkerchief to wipe her tears. Schwerer, who knows how long later will you return from your trip to Celestial Light Academy? Your mother is spending her every day like years in the palace, and your royal brother had his meridians damaged for a second time. Even fifth-grade pills are not able to repair his injuries. Not that he's deposed from the crown prince title. He now spends his days in the palace like a dead person. As for your imperial father, he doesn't even give a hoot about us. Li Schwerer held Empress's hands as her eyes welled up with tears. Mother, don't worry. After I get back to Sky Cloud City, I'll definitely seek Master for help to see if he can cure Royal Brother. So both you and Royal Brother must not be disheartened. Don't worry, it's never too late to exact revenge. I heard that Bairoli is going to Sky Cloud City as well to enroll for Celestial Light Academy. What kind of place is Sky Cloud City? It's not a place for that wretched lass to throw her weight around. When we're there, I have many ways to take care of her. The Empress wiped off her tears. I can set my mind at ease hearing you say these. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor took a step forward and comforted Empress. Your Majesty, don't be too upset. No matter what, Majuan is my disciple, and when I'm out, I'll also think of ways to seek pills for his treatment. Majuan has outstanding talent, and once he had healed his meridians, he will be able to continue cultivating, going after the peak. Empress wiped her tears. Majuan had been taken care of by Imperial Tutors since young, but this time you've been implicated and forced to leave South Yu Kingdom. As his mother, I really feel bad about this. Imperial Tutor replied, What are you saying, Your Majesty? My departing from South Yu Kingdom has nothing to do with Majuan. It's entirely Bairuoli, that wretched slut's fault. Wait till we reach Sky Cloud City and see how I deal with her. Saying that, Imperial Tutor turned towards Ruo Qi. Cheer, you my youngest disciple. This time, I have brought out my ace-quality cultivation methods and pills, so you must not fall short on your resolution and win some face for me. When you have reached Celestial Light Academy, you must excel over that slut and let her know that there's someone mightier out there. Ruo Qi's eyes were filled with hatred as she replied in a low tone, Master, rest assured that Qi'er will definitely work hard and not lose to her. Ruo Qi had just finished her sentence when she heard a sneering sound from nearby. The few of them didn't expect that anyone would come to the outskirts so early in the morning and even dare to sneer at exponents with status and power like them. They turned their heads and was just about to teach the fool a lesson, but when they saw the person, they all became stunned. Right in front of them was a lavish carriage, and when the curtains was unveiled, a captivating and dainty beauty revealed a young face. Right on front of their eyes was the person they had a deep hatred for, Huang Yueli. Their eyes seemed to spew out flames of fire as they stared intently at the young lady ahead. Bairuoli, it's you. Why are you here? How dare you even appear in front of us? Huang Yueli was questioned with everyone talking all at once, but she smiled frivolously as though she didn't feel any pressure at all. Are you making jokes? This route is so wide, and did they mention that only your carriage is allowed to cross? Why can't my carriage pass by here? but I'd never expected such a coincidence that we'd set off to the Sky Cloud City together on the same day. This is really ape's manure. One of the few of them were infuriated to the point of being unable to speak. Who would want any fate with her? Who? This wretched lass was born to curb them, and whoever went against her would have bad luck. Even though they were pretty impressive earlier, with everyone swearing that they would not Huang Yueli have it easy, but when they had really met her, without any exception, all of them felt nervous inside and subconsciously didn't want to confront her. It can only be said that Huang Yueli had already tricked them till they're really frightened. Just standing there alone and not doing anything was enough to give them tremendous pressure. Not long after, Seventh Princess was the first to break the silence and yelled, "By Ruoli, what do you mean? I think it must be intentional, right? You intentionally set off on the same day as us with the intention to jeer at us. What? Do you think that just because you broke into the second-degree realm, you're considered as South Sky Region's #1 talent? Let this princess tell you, in Sky Cloud City, individuals with innate talents higher than you are everywhere. So don't be too delighted for now. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli's lips curled slightly and swept Li Shuer a glance. That glance was filled with contempt and disdain and almost made Li Shuer jump in anger. Looking at Li Shuer's slightly flushed face, Huang Yueli continued, "Firstly, you're no longer a princess, so stop using this princess to address yourself every single time you open your mouth, which is simply scorning His Majesty's authority." Li Shuer suppressed her words. Huang Yueli continued hurriedly, "Secondly, stop plastering gold on your faces. Why would I intentionally want to jeer you all? 1, 2, 3, and 4, all 4 of you have been defeated by me, so why would I intentionally follow you? Do I even need to waste my energy?" When she said these, not only Li Shuer was upset, even Imperial Tutor and Empress were infuriated. However, Huang Yueli had not finished talking. "Thirdly, I had no intention to bother about you all, but each of you kept saying that you want to take care of me when we reach Sky Cloud City, to teach me a lesson. I feel that based on these words alone, I have to come and show my face. Otherwise, you might be mistaken that I'm really afraid of you. How about this? I'm standing here right now. Whoever wants to teach me a lesson, you don't need to wait till we reach Sky Cloud City. Come on and do it now." Her tone was light, and the expression was tranquil and calm, as though she didn't put these few people in her eyes. The few of them present were raging with anger. All of them were of great stature and had always been respected and worshipped by others. So when had they ever been subjected to such ridicule? Moreover, the most infuriating thing was Huang Yueli was obviously despising them, and yet they were unable to retaliate because they really couldn't beat her, even though they couldn't wait to kill her on the spot. But none of them could do anything to Huang Yueli. Amongst them, the most upset one was Imperial Tutor. He was a 4th-degree realm expert through, and especially in the past 200 years or so, he had always stayed in South Yu Kingdom and had been looked up at by everyone here. In his eyes, Huang Yueli was just a younger generation youth, and no matter how much innate talent she had, wasn't she only in 1st-degree realm? One finger of his was more than enough to crush her. However, this 2nd-degree realm youth had tripped him head over heels several times, and not only did he lose his reputation, he was also banished from South Yu Kingdom. The most infuriating thing was Huang Yueli actually treated him as her defeated foe, and the intonation she used with him was filled with contempt. Imperial Tutor's face turned steely green as he couldn't help but clutch his fists. The profound energy within his body was slightly uncontrollable and was gradually raging up, to a point of divulging outside his body. Bai Ruoqi was standing beside Imperial Tutor, and when she felt the pressure that Imperial Tutor had unintentionally leaked out, her face turned pale, and she took a few steps backwards, somewhat unable to hang on. Li Shuer had a shock as well, and secretly tugged on Imperial Tutor's sleeve. In a low voice, she told him, "Imperial Tutor, sir, you must not be rash. Don't forget, although this Bairoli is only in 2nd-degree realm, but she had a 5th-degree realm bodyguard beside her. If you were to sow something to her now, it is simply looking for trouble and will give her a chance to embarrass you later. Please absolutely bear with this for now. Imperial Tutor had originally lost his rationality and just almost struck out against Huang Yueli. But when he heard Li Xuer's words, he seemed to have awoken from shock and broke out in sweat. He subconsciously turned to look at Huang Yueli and found that she was also staring at him. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli sat in quietly in solace inside her carriage and stared at him frostily. Her expression was as per normal, as though she was not affected at all by the profound energy that he had unleashed. However, Li Xuer and the Empress, who were similarly second-degree Rel practitioners, had already turned pale. Imperial Tutor stared at Huang Yueli as a battle broke out in his mind. Of course, he naturally hated Huang Yueli and wanted badly to exact immediate revenge, but just as what Li Xuer mentioned, the bodyguard beside Huang Yueli was just too powerful, someone who he cannot afford to rile up. Imperial Tutor hesitated for a moment and gradually reclaimed his unleashed profound energy. With a steely green face, he snorted heavily. Immediately after that, he turned around and headed back to his carriage. Li Xuer and Bai Ruo Qi looked at each other in the eye, nodded towards Empress, and hurriedly made their ways to the carriage. Even the Empress did not dare to continue staying here and hastily mounted her carriage, traveling towards the direction of the capital. Within a quarter of an hour, everyone seemed to have caught fire on their buttocks and ran away. Huang Yueli suddenly felt dull, and putting down the curtains, she waved her hand. So disappointing, they left just like that? Earlier, when I heard their overbearing tones, I had thought they really intended to rebel. Who knows that they're still hanging on to their usual way of bullying the weak. Really having a heart of a thief, but no equivalent guts. TSK, TSK. Not that I want to say them, but their resolution is so weak. Being beaten up by me is just a small matter. I'm afraid that their way of cultivation would be affected somewhat. She knocked on the wall of the carriage. Forget it. Let's be on our way as well. The carriage started on its way on the path again. Kai Wei had been sitting in the corner of the carriage, and once she saw Li Xuer's carriage disappearing in the line of sight, she patted her chest as she heaved a sigh of relief. Phew, at last. At least we have shaken off 7th Princess and the rest. Earlier, I was really scared that Imperial Tutor almost struck. Luckily, he still doesn't know Brother Imo. He had already left. If he knew, I'm afraid that we might have lost our lives earlier. That was simply too dangerous. Too dangerous. Huang Yueli swept her glance. What, you're looking down on your miss? Isn't he just a 4th-degree realm old man? What's so great about that? Towards this kind of old fool, he's still beneath your miss. Kai Wei coughed, drying, and quickly added, Yes, 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 Mission number 1 talent in our South Yu Kingdom. Naturally, you're extremely powerful. She avoided the heavy topic, and although on the surface she was praising Huang Yueli, but if one were to pay attention closely, one would be able to tell that she did not believe what Huang Yueli said one bit. But it's no wonder, because in the eyes of a normal person, 4th-degree realm practitioners were very powerful, and Huang Yueli was just in 2nd-degree realm. For her to leap 2 huge realms and challenge the famed Imperial Tutor, it's simply daydreaming. Huang Yueli casted Kai Wei a glance, and although she knew she didn't believe what she said, she didn't explain further. The carriage was speeding on the pathway for an entire day and night, and besides stopping to make their meals, they didn't make any additional delays. It was until at night, when the party had finally reached a small town. Huang Yueli took out her map and said, Let's take a rest here today. According to the signs on the map, this should be the only town in the surrounding area that we can rest for the night. Out of this area, we will need to travel 500 miles before we reach another village. Otherwise, we will need to camp out in the wild. Kai Wei looked around and excitedly pointed towards the front. Third miss, there seems to be an up ahead. I shall go and reserve a room now and let the inn receive us. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.